The story begins when a bright light suddenly erupted. The MC complained inwardly that it was so bright he could not open his eyes and could not even breathe properly. The MC's name was Shuu Abe. He was born on January 7th, was 23 years old, single, and had never had a girlfriend. His hometown was Gyuda in Saitama Prefecture, and he was currently living in Kaname Town. He had started his first job in the sales department of a web advertising company, and he would soon complete his first year. However, one thought lingered in his mind. What was he supposed to be doing? At that moment, he recalled that he must have been admitted to the hospital after being a complete dumbass. He had gotten drunk, fallen off a balcony, and broken his bones. He must have caused a lot of trouble for the company too, and he wondered if he might be fired. Slowly, Shuu opened his eyes and found himself in an unfamiliar place. His eyes widened in shock when he realized that this was not a hospital room. He had no idea where he was or what had happened. When he tried moving his hand, some sticky substance prevented his movement. He reacted in shock when he saw that it was covering his whole body. Furious, he pulled the sticky substance away from his body, wondering what these super weird black strings were and why they were so creepy. He also wondered why he was completely wrapped in this thing. But suddenly he noticed that his hands could move and that his legs felt as good as new. More importantly, he realized that he was completely naked. Shuu was completely puzzled as he wondered what was going on. From a distance, he saw a small crack. Without hesitation, he walked toward it and peeked through the hole, finding a pile of stones inside. However, below was a small entrance. Without a second thought, he crawled inside and was surprised by what he saw. It was a metro. Shuu remarked to himself that it was enormous and wondered how old this subway was. More importantly, he had no idea where the hell he was. Shuu groaned in frustration, admitting to himself that the situation was completely beyond his understanding. He wished that someone could help him. However, he quickly warned himself that he might get arrested if he went in front of people while completely naked. Nobody would help him under those circumstances, so he decided that he had better get dressed before finding someone. Just then he heard someone approaching. Shuu panicked as he realized that his situation was really bad. He could not get in front of people like this at all. But when he turned around, what he saw was a massive beast ready to devour him. Shuu stood frozen as he internally questioned how a wolf could possibly be here in Tokyo. That should have been impossible. He wondered whether he was dreaming or whether the creature was some kind of robot or CGI. He desperately wished that someone would wake him up. At that moment, the wolf lunged at him while Shuu fell to the ground and desperately tried to make the wolf go away. Before he could finish, however, the wolf had already bitten his arm and was hungrily chewing it. Blood sprayed into the air as Shuu screamed in agony. Staring at the wolf, he began to tremble and cursed inwardly, convinced that he was going to die. He felt as though he had already suffered enough and desperately wanted a break from everything happening to him. Shuu curled up defensively once again as the wolf lunged toward him. Inside his mind, he desperately screamed that he did not want to die. But then nothing happened. Slowly, Shuu opened his eyes. What he saw left him frozen in shock. A sword had emerged directly from the palm of his hand, piercing straight through the wolf's head and killing it instantly. Blood dripped from the blade as Shuu pulled it free from the beast's skull. Completely exhausted, he collapsed onto the ground. Staring blankly at his hand, Shuu tried to process what had happened. He was certain that he had seen a sword coming out of his palm. He wondered if it had been a dream, but when he looked at the now-dead wolf, he knew that it had not been. Shuu complained internally that he was so hungry he wanted to eat something immediately. The instant that thought crossed his mind, his eyes unconsciously drifted toward the dead wolf. Shuu quickly snapped himself out of it and reflected on everything that had happened to him. He had never been such a strong person, yet this was reality. Having an empty stomach was hell, and even though he had killed the beast, he could not prepare a meal for himself. There was no pond or source of fire around. His hands were beginning to tremble. With no other choice, Shuu decided that at this rate he would even eat raw meat. All of a sudden, someone spoke, asking if he was not going to squeak the sporangium. Hearing that, Shuu stopped and looked around for the source of the voice. When he could not find anyone else, the voice spoke again, and Shuu finally spotted its source. A small squirrel greeted him and addressed him as Mr. Hunter, asking if Shuu could please let him squeak it too. However, Shuu did not respond immediately because his brain was still trying to process everything he had just witnessed. Then suddenly, he screamed at the top of his lungs after realizing that the squirrel was actually talking. In the next instant, the squirrel punched him straight in the face and angrily scolded him for speaking so loudly, warning that Shuu would attract the other beasts there too. The squirrel continued rambling non-stop, complaining that hunters were always carving out metro beast sporangiums. He explained that he lived on the leftovers killed by those hunters. After that, he urged Shuu to grow a pair and start extracting the ghost wolf already. The squirrel instructed him to begin by cutting open the belly. Although hesitant, Shuu nervously stabbed into the wolf's corpse. The squirrel immediately urged him to keep going. Shuu cursed under his breath and complained that the skin was very thick. The squirrel explained that he did not have to open the ribs because the sporangium was in the lower belly. The moment Shuu saw the wolf's inside spill out, disgust twisted across his face. Ignoring his reaction entirely, the squirrel informed him that there would be something ball-like deep inside. Shuu reached into the corpse, grabbed one of the organs, and asked if that was what the squirrel meant. But suddenly, a distant roar echoed through the area. The squirrel instantly panicked and began sprinting away, warning that some other beasts were coming in fast. Shuu flinched in alarm and, without wasting another second, hurried after the squirrel. As Shuu returned to the area where he had originally been, he noted to himself that they had ended up having to come back there after all. The squirrel sighed in relief and commented that it was a good hideout because those big beasts would not be able to come through there. He then suggested that perhaps the hole had appeared because of the metro fluctuations from the previous day. Shuu was confused by the mention of metro fluctuations. The squirrel explained that he had been flying down there a while ago. He then wondered what exactly this place was. The squirrel told Shuu that he would explain later, and that, for now, they should eat the sporangium. Hearing that, Shuu stared at the organ in his hand and hesitated at the squirrel's suggestion to eat it raw. He questioned whether it was really a body organ and felt extremely unwilling to eat it like that. The squirrel furiously scolded him, warning that if Shuu did not eat it quickly, it would rot. He continued calling Shuu a dumbass for hesitating. Shuu wondered why the squirrel needed to curse at him so much. Having no other choice, he finally took a bite. He quickly swallowed it before collapsing to the ground in disgust. Suddenly, a shock surged through his entire body, causing him to freeze. Shuu immediately demanded to know what had just happened. The squirrel explained that he had leveled up. Shuu was confused by the concept of leveling up, so the squirrel explained that it meant his body's kinshur had expanded. The squirrel then remarked that despite being a citizen of Itakuri, Shuu was even dumber than he was. Puzzled, Shuu wondered about what the squirrel had said concerning his body's kinshur, growth, prohibition, kinshur, and mycelium. He admitted that he did not understand anything and that he was not even a hunter, just a regular employee. The squirrel repeated the word employee and remarked that it sounded like a lame name. Shuu quickly corrected him by stating that his name was Shuu Abe. At that exact moment, another sudden shock surged through the squirrel's body. Immediately afterward, the squirrel celebrated excitedly upon realizing that he had leveled up too. Shuu was surprised to discover that even squirrels had that leveling up system. The squirrel smugly revealed that he was not a squirrel at all but a magical beast, specifically the most famous carbuncle in the world. He had simply been using the word squeak repeatedly in his sentences. The squirrel then handed the remaining organ back to Shuu, explaining that he was already full and that Shuu should eat the rest of it. Shuu wondered whether squirrels were not supposed to eat grass, but the moment he swallowed the organ, another shock surged through his body. Seeing that, the squirrel remarked that for Shuu to level up twice like that, he must have been a really weak human. Sighing heavily, Shuu admitted that he was still weak. He had only woken up a while ago and had no clue where he was now. He then called out to the squirrel, who was busy licking his fingers. The squirrel turned toward him and pointed out that he had a name too. His name was Tamiko. Shuu apologized to the squirrel and began calling him Tamiko before asking directly where they were now and what year it was. Tamiko explained that they were currently at Otsuka Metro, approximately 50 levels deep underground. He did not know what year it was, but according to the Tokyo calendar, it should be around year 102. Confused, Shuu wondered what Tamiko meant by the Tokyo calendar. Tamiko revealed that the metro had been flooded 102 years ago and that the previous kingdom had fallen into ruins. The people now called the place New Tokyo. Tamiko added that his mama had whispered in his ear that it had become the kingdom of the people of Itakuri. Hearing all of this, Shuu froze in shock. The memories of when he had been in the hospital suddenly flooded back into his mind. That day, there had been news reports stating that frequent collapses were occurring in the metro, though nobody knew why. As a result, it seemed that all the lines were out of order. When Shu's parents had visited him, they had told him that visiting had become really troublesome because the new Otsuka station had gone out of order. They had to walk the mountain trail from Otsuka station all the way to where he was. His mother had continued explaining that there was such a huge queue at the station waiting to get on a train that they could not even enter the platform, and television stations were calling it the Metro flag. After that, his parents had said goodbye to him. Recalling that moment, Shu slowly realized that the Metro flood sounded familiar. Now that he thought about it, he felt as though he had heard about it before. That day had been incredibly crowded everywhere, even inside the hospital. Suddenly, a nurse had barged in and announced that everyone needed to evacuate the area immediately. Shu had been confused and wanted to know what was happening, but before he could finish, the ground had begun shaking violently. That day, there had been a huge earthquake. The power supply had been cut, leaving everything completely pitch black. The building had trembled as though it were about to collapse at any moment. Then Shu had felt as though he were falling down along with his bed. Shu admitted to himself that he could remember only so much. If what Tamiko was saying was true, then the calamity must have happened alongside the Metro flooding event. Japan, or perhaps the entire world, must have been destroyed by it. New Tokyo must have been formed afterward. The current timeline was approximately 100 years after that event. After piecing everything together, Shuu muttered that it was impossible. Even if he had been asleep for about 100 years, he should have disappeared from the world. Instead, he was as healthy as he had been before the accident. Tamiko wondered whether that meant Abe Shuu was a person from the previous world. Shuu admitted that it certainly seemed that way, but the idea sounded completely impossible. Tamiko wondered whether a normal person could even live that long. Shuu dismissed the possibility, saying that he certainly did not think humans could live for 100 years. He then mentioned that when he had woken up, he had been wrapped in the creepy substance. He wanted to know what it was, and Tamiko explained that it was mold. Shuu froze and wondered if he had actually been inside mold. Tamiko suggested that perhaps it was kinnu. Shuu was confused by the term kinnu. Tamiko released a heavy sigh and complained that it was tiresome having to squeak out explanations to someone who did not know anything at all. Shuu immediately apologized, but without warning, he started rubbing Tamiko's belly. Furious, Tamiko shouted at him not to touch him and called him a dumbass. He threatened to bite Shu's finger off and demanded that he stop. However, only a few seconds later, Tamiko completely submitted to the belly rubs. Shuu once again asked what a kinnu was. Tamiko explained that kinnu was an ability that controlled their kinshur and was also called a skill. But the moment Shuu stopped rubbing his belly, Tamiko immediately shouted at him not to stop because he wanted more belly rubs. Without hesitation, Shuu resumed rubbing his belly and then asked whether the fungal filament must be the mold or some kind of mushroom. While happily enjoying the belly rubs, Tamiko explained that all humans, including Shuu, had fungal filaments inside them. That was why they could make use of kinnu. Hearing that, Shu's face twisted with disgust as he wondered whether fungus residing inside him meant that there was essentially a parasite inside his body. Tamiko then pointed out that Shuu had recently killed the ghost wolf using kinnu. Shocked, Shuu stared at his palm and wondered whether that had been the fungal ability. He remembered that at the time he had only wished to live. Right away, Shuu tried to summon the sword again. Instantly, something appeared in his palm, resembling strands of hair that grew and slowly formed into a sword. Shuu reacted in shock once again and could not believe that he had actually summoned a sword. Tamiko explained that this was Shu's fungal ability and that it was the fungal weapon hunters used. Without hesitation, Shuu pulled the sword completely out of his palm. He stared at it with amazement and noted that it was an unpolished, thirsty blade. It was light, yet it looked extremely sharp, almost like a real sword. He could not believe that this was his fungal. Tamiko confirmed that it was indeed Shu's stiff and sharp thing. Shuu was confused about what that was supposed to mean. Tamiko explained that the hunters from the people of Ikitori used their fungal abilities to obtain resources from the metro. They ate sporangiums to grow stronger and kill even larger beasts. Shu's face filled with disgust as he wondered whether the sporangiums of the metro beasts were essentially their reproductive organs. Tamiko suspected that the creatures were descendants of animals that had survived the metro pandemic 100 years ago. Shuu echoed the explanation and pointed out that Tamiko had used yet another disturbing term. He then shifted to another topic, remembering that Tamiko had said they were in Otsuka Metro. Shuu wondered whether it was near Sugamo or Ikebukuro. Tamiko replied that he did not know because he had never gone to the surface. He had only learned about humans and their language from his mama. Tamiko added that his mama had once squeaked monsters alongside hunters in the past and had been very knowledgeable about things. Noticing the sadness in Tamiko's voice, Shuu turned toward him in surprise. He then asked what it would take to return to the surface. Tamiko immediately answered that it was impossible. Hearing that, Shuu froze. Tamiko pointed out that Shuu was a weak person, nothing more than a small tick in the vast metro. If Shuu remained careless in the metro, he would be squeaked by metro beasts such as the ghost wolf from earlier before he even realized what was happening. Afterward, Shuu would simply squeak into poop in no time. Shuu made it clear that he did not want to become poop. Tamiko added that Shuu would have to climb a great many stairs just to reach the surface. On top of that, there would be many metro beasts squeaking in his way. Because of all this, Tamiko believed reaching the surface was impossible for Shuu. Disappointed, Shuu wondered whether there was any possibility of another human coming down there. Tamiko immediately answered that there was none at all. He admitted that Shuu was the first human he had ever squeaked at in his life, which was why he had been so excited to see him there. Tamiko added that it had been completely unexpected for him to encounter such a shiny face down there. Shuu sarcastically apologized for having such a shiny and attractive face. He then sighed in defeat and concluded that this was the worst of the worst. Tamiko suddenly added that despite everything, Shuu was still Shuu Abe. He therefore needed to level up more and become capable of fighting against the metro beasts. Tamiko advised Shuu to eat more and more sporangiums and become a fierce hunter, just like the hunter his mama had teamed up with. Hearing all of this, Shuu was momentarily stunned. He admitted that he did not think he would be able to do this alone because he had not prepared for anything. He had no equipment and zero knowledge about the modern world. Tamiko leapt onto his shoulder and announced that he would help Shuu. With the knowledge he had received from his mama, he would do his best to squeak alongside Shuu during battles. Surprised, Shuu expressed his gratitude but wondered why Tamiko wanted to help him. Tamiko excitedly revealed that he also wanted to squeak on the surface. He had spent his entire life squeaking down in the metro and wanted to see everything above ground, including the sun and the towns built by humans. That was why he wanted to help Shuu become stronger. He wanted the two of them to squeak on the surface together. Shuu understood and recognized that it was essentially a win-win proposal. Then, out of nowhere, Tamiko questioned whether she had a male reproductive organ and revealed that she was female. Shuu awkwardly confirmed that he did. With full determination, Shuu stood up while thinking about the underground basement level 50 and the metro filled with rampant beasts. Although he only had the fungal sword as his weapon and a squirrel as his companion, he wondered what kind of adventure this even was. However, he knew that he would not understand it until he discovered the truth for himself. Tamiko declared that it was time for them to start squeaking. Shuu Abe. Shuu shook hands with Tamiko using his finger and expressed that he was looking forward to getting along with her. Tamiko replied that the feeling was mutual and promised to give it her all so that they could both do their best. Judging from this outcome, the two of them would probably spend 5 years on this level. Shuu asked Tamiko to treat him gently. Tamiko reassured him that everything would be all right. With Tamiko around him, it would be just like squeaking on a leafy boat. Shuu immediately pointed out that such a boat would definitely sink. Tamiko complained that he should not be mean because she was being completely serious. The two of them were going to squeak their way toward the sun shining over New Tokyo before they even knew it. The next day, when Shuu opened his eyes, he found himself in a familiar room. He realized that this was where he had been admitted. At that moment, a nurse announced that it was time to have a meal. Relief washed over Shuu as he realized that all of that had just been a dream. A doctor asked Shuu how he was feeling. While checking on him, Shuu questioned when he would be discharged. The doctor answered that once Shuu had leveled up sufficiently, he would be discharged. Hearing that, Shuu reacted in confusion. Just then, Tamiko cheerfully greeted him with a good morning, saying that it was bright outside. Shuu immediately woke up, realizing that it had only been a dream. He sighed heavily, murmuring that this nightmare kept going even after he woke up. Tamiko pointed out that he had just woken up, and yet had already started complaining. Her words instantly faltered the moment Shuu rubbed her belly. Silently, Shuu recalled that this place was the 50th level of Otsuka Metro, and from what Tamiko had told him, this seemed to be a vast labyrinth spread out deep underneath Tokyo. And yet, it was so bright in here. Tamiko pointed something out, informing him that this was a firefly nest. The morning squeaks were bright here, while the nights were filled with blueness. Shuu then wondered whether they had really fallen asleep, just like that yesterday. He was feeling very hungry and thirsty, and wished they could find some water. Hearing that, Tamiko suggested that they go to the oasis. Shuu echoed the word in confusion, wondering what an oasis was. Without delay, Tamiko guided him there. Just then, he noticed the ghost wolf from yesterday. He mentioned that it looked like the beast was already turning into some sort of seed plot, even though there was no light reaching it. Tamiko replied that this was simply how fungus grew. There was also a lot of fungus growing in the oasis. Hearing that, Shuu decided to summon his sword just in case. At the same time, he recalled that the fungal ability and that blackish mold from earlier had healing properties and the ability to summon a sword. For now, he knew that he could use these two abilities, but he wondered if there were more. Noticing his silence, Tamiko called his attention and urged him to get going. Right away, they began their journey to the oasis. Tamiko continued giving him directions until they finally arrived. The moment Shuu saw the oasis, he could not help but remark on how incredible it was. But he immediately snapped out of it and looked around alarmingly. Tamiko reassured him that everything would be okay because, with her fungal ability, she could pick up even the tiniest of sounds. Tamiko proudly added that there were no beasts nearby, only some rats and other small animals. With that, Shuu calmed down. Tamiko then excitedly told Shuu that there was water. Without wasting a moment, the two of them headed there. Shuu scooped water with his palms and drank from them. The moment he tasted it, he was stunned by how delicious it was. He noted that the sensation was something else and that he had never drunk such tasty water before. Next to him, Tamiko commented that making a noise was very rude. She then began splashing water onto herself before wiping herself with a dry leaf. Satisfied, she announced that she was done cleaning herself. With a curious look, she called out to her and asked what the red jewel on her forehead was. Tamiko simply explained that even her mama had one, so maybe that was just how squirrels were. Without warning, Shuu patted the jewel, which Tamiko immediately protested against, telling him not to touch it because it was very sensitive. But instantly, her anger faded and was replaced with pleasure. She even asked him to pat her more. Seeing that, Shuu pointed out that she was pretty easy to understand. Moments later, Shuu suggested that they should find some food. Seeing some unfamiliar plants around, he admitted that he had never seen plants like these in his entire life. Tamiko immediately told him to leave it to her. She pointed to a nearby plant and informed him that the glossy plant was very bad news. Then she pointed out that the spindling plant and the bushy plant over there were edible. Excitedly, Tamiko pointed to another plant and informed him that it was known as an acorn dandelion. Shuu silently watched her eating the plant while thinking that she was definitely a squirrel, and he guessed that was just how things were. Shuu looked around with amazement as he remarked that it did not seem like there was enough to satisfy his hunger, but the place was really something else. The withered grass looked so smooth and perhaps had some good properties. Since it was also very sturdy, he realized that he could use it like thread. If he collected a lot more of it, he might even be able to make a bed for himself. Shuu approached another plant, muttering that he had also been wondering about the giant leaf for a while. At that moment, an idea popped into his mind. Right away, Shuu wrapped a leaf around his waist like a skirt, exclaiming that he was finally no longer naked. He noted that it looked good for something made so hastily. He then called out to Tamiko and asked if she sensed any wolves or anything. Tamiko told him that animals like those did not come in there often. She explained that her mama had whispered in her ear that carnivorous animals usually squeaked away from the heavy floral smell of the oasis. Hearing that, Shuu suggested that perhaps they should live there. Tamiko hesitated, explaining that if those animals came in there, they would have nowhere to run. Shuu agreed and said that there was no exception when it came to safety. And so, after that, they spent their time setting up a base at their hideout by harvesting the necessary goods to make a basic living. Completely exhausted, Shuu complained that it was so hard to make a fire. Tamiko pointed out that it was because they were all damn. Unconsciously, Shuu grabbed the mouse passing by. He thought in surprise that this was some unexpected agility coming from him. He wondered if this was also a benefit from leveling up. Tamiko scolded him, telling him that it was time to stop being such a sissy and to stop being so pathetic and kill it completely. Shuu replied inwardly that he was just trying to keep the rodents away, squirrel buddy. Then, before killing the mouse, Shuu apologized. After that, he was able to obtain a rat sporangium, but it was so small. He noted that because he could not handle stronger beasts like the ghost wolf just yet, picking up smaller animals was perhaps the safest way to level up for now. Tamiko explained that it was going to be very tough for him to level up like this. She knew he was a small, squeaky human, but it would take around 10,000 rodents before he leveled up. She added that if he was going to hunt, he should try fighting against a ghost wolf or a blue goblin. Either of those two were fairly weak for him to squeak against. Shuu echoed the information in surprise upon hearing about a goblin. Tamiko informed him that it was a monkey-like creature with dense fur all over its body. There were 3 types of goblins: red, blue, and green. The blue one was stronger than the green one and was on the same level as a ghost wolf. Shuu replied that surely it was above his level and wondered if they could go for the green one instead. Tamiko revealed that this floor only had the blue and red ones. The red ones were dangerous because they were above level 15 and could apparently squeak out the fungal ability. Without a second thought, Shuu decided that they were definitely going to avoid them. Tamiko continued explaining that the red ones could squeak out fungal weapons or sometimes fungal balls too. Shuu questioned what fungus balls were. Internally, he admitted that he could not imagine what they were, but wondered if perhaps they were tools that could be thrown. Filled with confusion, Shuu asked if Tamiko could use something like that. Immediately, Tamiko snapped at him, saying that she could not do anything like that because she was a squeaking female and calling him a dumbass. Shuu replied that he understood and shrugged it off before suggesting that they should keep a lookout near their hideout's entrance. When they sensed a blue goblin or a ghost wolf nearby, it would be their battle for survival. Tamiko nodded and said that she would take care of waking up their bones. However, Shuu told her that she would be helping him. 3 days passed. Tamiko's loud voice echoed as she called out to Shuu and told him to wake up, sleepyhead. Shuu groaned in pain from her punch. Tamiko alarmed him by informing him that there was one nearby and that it was coming toward them. Hearing that, Shuu was surprised and realized that it was finally time. He asked whether it was a ghost wolf or a goblin. Tamiko answered that it was both of them. Both beasts were fighting because wolves and monkeys did not get along well together. She instructed Shuu to squeak in when the fight was over, squeak up on the last standing beast, and backstab it. Shuu gripped his fist with determination, remarking that this was the third-party advantage. But slowly, fear surged through him. Tamiko scolded him to squeak up and hold it together. With a trembling voice, Shuu reminded himself that he had no choice but to do it because he wanted to go to the surface. Calming himself down, he declared that this was it, and that this was their first step. Nearby, just as Tamiko had said, the two beasts were fighting with each other. Meanwhile, Shuu and Tamiko hid themselves. He noted in his thoughts that the blue goblin was perhaps a meter tall. It was ferocious and very nimble. But considering the level difference between the two beasts, the ghost wolf dominated. At that moment, the ghost wolf bit off the goblin's arm, defeating it in an instant. Shuu wondered if the ghost wolf had triumphed. But all of a sudden, something sharp struck the ghost wolf's eye. Shuu was shocked. Tamiko notified him that another one had squeaked into the fight, and it was the red goblin. She then reacted in surprise upon seeing that the red goblin could squeak out fungal needles. Without wasting a second, the red goblin threw more needles at the ghost wolf, and then leapt toward it for the finishing blow. However, the ghost wolf, which seemed to have lost its strength, lunged at the red goblin and bit off its head, defeating it instantly. Nearby, both Shuu and Tamiko were stunned by what they had witnessed. Just then, the ghost wolf let out a piercing roar. Shuu broke into a cold sweat as he nervously remarked on how insane this was. He thought that the red goblin was weak, but perhaps the ghost wolf was the strongest one. Shuu wondered if he would really be able to win against these terrifying monsters. That cornered wolf was the most terrifying one of them all. Worried, Tamiko called out to him. Although he was scared, Shuu decided to stand up on his feet, telling Tamiko that he would leave the bone picking to her. Then he rushed toward where the ghost wolf was. Shuu gripped his sword tightly as he rushed toward the beast. He told himself that if an adult man carrying a katana at waist length while wearing a skirt charged at an enemy while screaming, and his coworker happened to see this sight unfolding, they would probably send him back to the hospital. With a piercing roar, Shuu leapt toward the beast and swung his sword. After a few moments, the ghost wolf's body lay lifelessly on the ground. Tamiko's voice filled with concern as she called out to Shuu and pointed out that he was covered in blood, urging him not to die. Covered with wounds, Shuu reassured her that he was fine and would be cured soon. He added that although his opponent had been heavily wounded, this was still the outcome, and he had won in the end. It was amazing that even such an injury could be healed, making him wonder who the real monster was here. Just a few seconds later, his body was fully healed. Tamiko was amazed that he was back to how he had been before. She told him that if he was okay, he should hurry up and extract the sporangium, urging him to squeak it and stop wasting time. Shuu sighed and pointed out how she had changed instantly, even though she had been crying just moments ago. At that moment, a growl echoed nearby. Shuu crashed back to the ground as his strength suddenly wavered. He glanced back and realized that the red goblin had survived, even though its body was covered with heavy wounds. Meanwhile, Shuu began to panic because his sword would not come out no matter how many times he summoned it. He wondered if it was because his wounds were not fully healed, and he could not muster enough energy. Just then, the red goblin lunged at him, and Shuu barely managed to block it. The red goblin charged at him again, sending Shuu crashing back to the ground. Tamiko worriedly called out to him. Shuu gasped in pain from the impact and cursed inwardly, noting that even though this beast was on the verge of death, it still packed quite a punch. As the beast approached, Tamiko rushed forward and shielded Shuu with her small body. She tried to intimidate the red goblin, but her body trembled non-stop. Tamiko insisted that she would handle it and told Shuu to run away instead. At the next moment, the red goblin stretched out its hand toward her. Shuu cursed inwardly and forced himself not to become overwhelmed by the situation. If he did not do something, they would die, and it was all the same. Suddenly, he noticed something. When he glanced at his finger, he saw something string-like coming out of his wound. At first, he wondered if it was blood or a thread, but then he realized that it was neither. It was a red fungal filament. Shuu was momentarily shocked. Meanwhile, Tamiko was about to be swallowed by the red goblin, but at the right moment, Shuu warned her to get away. Immediately, Shuu threw the bundled fungal filaments toward the red goblin, striking its head with perfect accuracy. The moment the attack connected, flames erupted, setting the beast ablaze and burning it alive. Tamiko watched in amazement, instantly recognizing the technique as a fungal ball. Without wasting a second, Shuu grabbed his sword and rushed toward the red goblin, which was desperately trying to extinguish the fire consuming its body. He raised his sword high and, with a loud shout, delivered the finishing blow. Tamiko suddenly called out to him and tossed a sporangium into his mouth, telling him to open his mouth. After swallowing it, Shuu called out to her. Alarmed, Tamiko quickly asked what was wrong. Shuu let out a sigh and reassured her that he was fine and that it seemed he had leveled up. Hearing that, Tamiko exclaimed that she was glad and jumped toward him with tears in her eyes. Shuu immediately pulled her away. He then noticed the blood covering her body and asked what had happened to the goblin. Tamiko explained that the blood was not hers and told him to look around. Right away, Shuu glanced around and saw 3 beasts lying lifelessly on the ground. Slowly, reality began to sink in. He had truly survived. He could not believe it, as a completely unbelievable, life-threatening situation had unfolded, and an average man like himself who had lived a careful life had survived it. Shuu began celebrating, amazed at their complete victory, going from 3 sporangiums to 6 in one squeak. Meanwhile, Shuu wondered what it was that he was feeling, realizing that he was actually enjoying himself. Tamiko explained to him that the fungal ball had 2 types of uses. If he ate it, he would recover, and if he threw it, it would explode in flames. Shuu was surprised to realize that they could heal him if he ingested them. He recalled that when he had thrown one earlier, the goblin had caught fire. As he mentioned fire, Shuu slowly realized that if he had this skill, then he could make a fire. Tamiko agreed with his idea. And so, after acquiring the flammable fungal balls, he had improved his survival here by a tiny margin. He had also obtained a throwing weapon for battles, but that did not make him a capable fighter. It became a daily routine for Tamiko to carefully bait monsters for him to take down. Panting heavily, Shuu admitted that he could move better than before, but all he could do was barely move with all these injuries. Tamiko smugly commented that he had certainly squeaked with that blue goblin for a long time. Shuu glanced at her and asked what her level was and whether she had any skills that could help him in battle. Tamiko replied that small animals fought small, and that she would not be much use if she stepped in. Groaning, she added that she had a feeling she was going to remain there all the time. Shuu noted in his thoughts that it would be difficult if Tamiko got caught by the wolves, and that she should cling to him after all. Tamiko mentioned that there used to be a super strong metro beast around that area, and if it had still been there, she would have been pooped by then. Hearing that, Shuu questioned her level again. Then one day, something changed. Tamiko excitedly pointed out that there was a pelt, mushrooms, and sporangium, praising Shuu for squeaking well enough to bring in another good harvest for the day. The two of them immediately expressed their gratitude for the food and began eating. The moment Shuu swallowed the sporangium, some strange energy surged through his body. While eating, Tamiko asked what was wrong. Shuu told her that just then it felt as though his back had gotten hotter and that it felt slightly different from a level up. Tamiko questioned whether he was serious and explained that if his back was hot, it meant he had obtained a new kinnu. Hearing that, Shuu was surprised and asked what he should do now. Tamiko instructed him to try squeaking some of it out like last time. Right away, Shuu did what she said. He repeatedly told himself in his mind for it to come out, and he also tried whispering, praying, and chanting. Unconsciously, he became so absorbed in the moment that he even started using Tamiko's style of speaking. At that moment, something swirled in his palm. Shuu excitedly announced that it had come out. Tamiko was equally excited and announced that it would be his new kinnu. At that moment, a shield appeared, leaving the two of them momentarily stunned. Shuu tried striking it with his sword and noted that it felt just as hard as his fungal katana, making it a fungal shield. He added that it would not serve him offensively, but at least it would help in battle. Afterward, he fought another beast. Shuu was shocked to realize that the shield repelled bite and claw attacks and that he could use it as a diversion. He realized that it was quite useful. Suddenly, a realization hit him. This was the first time he had come out of a battle completely unscathed. With the same thought in mind, Shuu and Tamiko turned toward each other and began celebrating their victory. Lying exhaustedly, Shuu muttered that this was really good. Tamiko added that it was quite something and told him to keep squeaking at that rate. Shuu immediately obeyed and then questioned once again what her level was. Currently, Abe Shuu was finally at level 7. Moments later, they returned to their base. Shuu carved the number 36 onto the wall. He mentioned that it had been half a year since he had walked up there and that he had changed a little. Facing the approaching ghost wolf, he steeled himself for the fight. Without warning, the beast launched an attack, but Shuu dodged and counterattacked, though the ghost wolf evaded as well. The creature charged again, and Shuu blocked it with his shield, forcing it backward. The ghost wolf rushed forward once more, and Shuu raised his sword, internally focusing on striking its neck. Suddenly, the ghost wolf clamped onto his sword, biting it and shocking him, while another ghost wolf attacked from behind. Tamiko warned him, and Shuu quickly turned around as a fungal mass formed on his finger, which he hurled at the incoming wolf, igniting it in flames. Another ghost wolf immediately followed, but Shuu reacted quickly, stabbing it in the stomach and bringing it down lifelessly. He sighed in relief, admitting that the ambush had scared him. Tamiko told him that his squeaking sounds had silenced this wolf's footsteps and that even she had not noticed it. The burning wolf whimpered as it struggled, and Shuu placed his katana above it, apologizing before finishing it off completely. At that moment, Shu's level reached 17. Afterwards, they headed to the oasis. Shuu couldn't believe that he had gotten used to living there in half a year. Tamiko, who had recently reached level 14, commented that he had gotten strong too and had been fighting quite well that day, adding that it was all thanks to her guidance. Shuu shot back that he had already passed her level. In his mind, he noted that even though he had leveled up quite a bit and his body felt stronger, there was no outward change. So that meant that his parasitic fungal filament had gotten stronger instead of him. He added that even so, he had managed to make clothes out of wolf's pelt that was dried and sewn together using a straw string. He had also made a bowl out of stone, mixing mycelium leaves with hot water to make a tea of sorts, which was one of the few luxuries available. He also had a canteen to hold water, made out of a wolf's bladder. Shuu mentioned that it had been more than half a year since the last level up. He wondered if their level was now too high to increase just from killing wolves. Tamiko agreed that it was true, as these beasts could no longer squeak against them. Shuu pointed out that he did not join in the fight, though. Tamiko glared at him, and asked if he wanted to squeak it up a notch. Shuu ignored her and thought that while the metro beasts had the sporangium inside of them, they did not reproduce at the same rate as a mushroom's fungal spores. They bred normally through male and female progression. He had once caught a glimpse of a newly born ghost wolf. Their numbers were not so small that he could exterminate an entire species by himself. He wondered what sort of influence overhunting ghost wolves would have on the ecosystem. If that were to happen, would the strongest class monsters start dominating this level? Strong monsters like ogres, orthrus, and others. Tamiko told him that they could squeak at this trash level for a bit more and enjoy their prosperity. Shuu sighed, remarking that she had no drive. Then he said that if only he could meet a woman around 30 in the metro. Did Tamiko not think they should take the next step and try ascending? Hearing that, Tamiko replied that even though he was still half-baked in terms of strength, he sure had confidence. She added that the squeak from a noob to intermediate was one filled with danger. Shuu agreed with what she said, saying that it was reasonable. Tamiko told him that once he squeaked a bit more to level up, they could switch their main target to the Red Goblin. At that mention, Shuu recalled those beasts in his mind. With burning determination, Tamiko declared that goblins were a dastardly bunch, that they stank like ass, were dirty, and never shut the squeak up. Their disgusting laughs were annoying, and they would eat anything from a roach to a wolf. She was determined to crush them so hard that they would go extinct. Hearing those remarks, Shuu wondered if she had a personal grudge against goblins, although he was the one doing the fighting. Tamiko explained that it was simply because their turfs and hideout were in different locations, so while they were en route, they might come across other strong beasts. Shuu commented that it sucked. Then he suggested that perhaps she should go collect information first. Tamiko handed him a sporangium and told him to eat up instead of worrying, because she was already full. Shuu accepted it and replied that he would do that. However, the moment it entered his body, he suddenly felt the same sensation he had experienced back then. He quickly turned to Tamiko and informed her that his back had gotten hot just then. Tamiko leapt in excitement upon hearing that he had obtained a new skill after so long. She then quickly told him to try squeaking it out. Shuu acknowledged her and told her to step back a bit. He concentrated, and slowly, strings came out from his thumb and began to swirl, forming another fungal ball. He wondered what use it had. Right away, he tested it by throwing it at a nearby tree, but nothing happened, and he realized that it seemed to have been the wrong choice. Nearby, he noticed a rat and, without warning, caught it. He wondered if maybe it had an effect only if they ate it. With that thought in mind, he tried feeding the rat the fungal ball, and immediately the rat began eating it. He could not help but remark that it was kind of cute. Shortly after that, they returned to their hideout. Disappointed, Shuu said that he had not noticed anything different. Tamiko pointed out that the mouse seemed a little too lively. Shuu glanced at her and asked if she could talk to this guy. Hearing his request, Tamiko angrily told him not to lump her together with that son of a bitch, calling him a moron and a damn delicate-faced man. She told him that he should go find a rock to squeak and talk to. Shuu smirked and asked her if she was sure she wanted to say that. Without warning, he picked her up and threateningly said that the next experiment was going to be them eating his balls. Tamiko screamed that this was animal abuse and demanded that he get his stinky balls away from her. She told him to stop, but the moment she tasted the fungal ball, she remarked that it was so good. It was so juicy, and there was a faint taste of sweetness. She wondered if these were the sweets from outside that her mommy had told her about. Shuu, who also took a bite, replied that it was not. Then, upon tasting it, he remarked that it did not seem to be poison, and that he would not say it was very good. Well, it did sort of feel like he had become a bit energized, so he wondered what it was. Tamiko asked for another, and said that it would be better if they squeaked out more about it. Seeing her puffed cheeks, Shuu could not help but remark that she was so cute. In his mind, he noted that he now had 5 fungal abilities. The first was the regenerative filament. If it was a minor injury, it would recover in a few seconds, while a heavy injury would require several minutes. Restoring serious injuries came with an onset side effect, like a violent feeling of hunger. He wondered if the reason he had survived for 100 years was thanks to this ability. The second was the fungal filament sword. It was a sword made out of fungal filament, and its physical properties resembled those of a bone. It was light and surprisingly hard. The third was the fireballs, a valuable tool for attacking from a long distance. Once they hit a hard surface, the cocoon would burst. It created a small explosion on impact and set the target on fire. The fourth was the fungal filament shield. Its thickness measured around 5 centimeters, and its shape was circular. The material was just as tough as the swords. The joint was strong enough to withstand emergency deployment even if he summoned it on the palm or the back of his hand. And the latest addition was the mysterious fungal ball. If it was squeezed, it leaked sweet juice. Nothing happened even if they ingested it. He questioned if it did have some sort of medicinal effect. But watching Tamiko eat it, it felt like, other than strengthening her heart, Tamiko was also experiencing something else. The next morning, while washing his face, Tamiko suddenly alarmed him that it was here. She turned to her in confusion. At that moment, a creature arrived with a horn on its forehead. Shuu asked her if unicorns were strong. Tamiko explained that it was in a different class, and that on this floor, it was the top squeaker in terms of strength. Nothing else could touch it. She added that the creature did not attack anybody, and that even if attacked, it only hastily ran away. But if for squeak reasons it became serious, it would one punch or rather one kick kill its opponent. Hearing that, Shuu wondered how much experience eating its sporangium would give him. He wondered if he could hunt it somehow, perhaps by surprising it or feeding it poisonous food. Suddenly, the unicorn turned their way. Seeing its intimidating aura, Shuu immediately shook off the idea. Afterwards, they set out for another adventure. Tamiko told him that they would only inspect the goblin village that day, and that they should not fight yet. Shuu replied that he understood. Just then, a noise echoed nearby. Shuu muttered that even though he said that it was not like a battle could be completely avoided. At that moment, the ghost wolf charged at him, but Shuu defeated it in an instant. While eating the sporangium, he noted that it had taken only a minute and that he had really become quite strong. Then all of a sudden, an energy surged through Tamiko's body. She then celebrated that she had leveled up and was now level 15, announcing that she had squeaked to new heights. Shuu congratulated her and asked if this was the third time in half a year, meaning that she had been level 12 when they met. Tamiko replied that it seemed to be the case. Shuu told her that she did not really need to hide it. Tamiko explained that it was inappropriate to ask a lady her age and level and that it was better to let others dream. Shuu questioned if she meant like an unmarried woman. Tamiko pointed out that Shuu squeaked his level-ups fast and quickly squeaked past her, saying that it seemed her eyes had not been wrong about him. Tamiko added that Shuu was amazing and told him to keep squeaking because she was sure he would become a lot stronger. Hearing those remarks, Shuu was momentarily stunned. Then he scratched his face, a bit embarrassed, as he replied that there was nobody to compare to there, but that it was all thanks to Tamiko. In an instant, Tamiko's face changed into a smug expression as she replied that she knew it. If she were not there, he would forever be a snack for the wolves. So Shuu should be grateful, she told him, calling him a damn goby. Seeing that, Shuu commented that bonus time sure had run out fast for those praises. Later on, they continued on their journey. Tamiko informed him that it was time for the next part of the plan. She would go take a look, and if there were a lot of them, she would run away. Shuu told her that it was okay, so she should not be rash. Just then he saw a plant ahead. He admitted that it was his first time seeing this plant, and that it reminded him of Lily of the Valley, but it was a little different. He then asked Tamiko if it was edible. Upon seeing what he meant, Tamiko immediately told him not to touch it. However, it was too late, as Shu's finger had already touched it. At that moment, the plant rang violently like a bell, causing a loud noise to echo throughout the place. Shuu reacted in shock. Tamiko immediately cut the plant off, and instantly the noise stopped. Shuu gasped in surprise. Tamiko turned angrily toward him, scolding him for being a fool and reminding him that she had already taught him not to touch any unknown plants. Shuu quickly apologized and reasoned that it did not look dangerous to him. Tamiko told him that it was a Baluran plant and that it must be a trap squeaky by the goblins. It would not be long before those monkeys came there. Tamiko began trembling nervously, exclaiming that this was bad and super squeaky bad. Shuu asked if that meant it had been there even after 100 years. Suddenly, he felt a chill running down his spine. He noticed that the atmosphere had somehow just changed. He quickly got up and decided that they had to hide and return at once. Tamiko jumped onto his shoulder and agreed. At the same time, the goblins who had been busy eating heard the noise and immediately became alert, rushing toward the direction of the sound. Tamiko warned Shuu that the goblins were coming, and when he looked back, he saw 3 goblins chasing them. He cursed aloud, wondering if they should fight, but Tamiko quickly refused, insisting that even for him, the 3 goblins would be too tough. There was a red one as well. Just then, a wolf charged at the goblins that were chasing them, and Shuu felt relieved at the sight, thinking that it might distract the goblins. But the wolf was instantly killed, leaving him horrified. He immediately broke into a desperate run while Tamiko reacted in panic, describing the situation as very bad and cruel and expressing that this was why she hated goblins. Shuu replied that he was with her on that one, but told her to stop shouting in his ear. They passed through the area, while another wolf nearby silently watched them, and Shuu concluded that they had to shake them off somewhere somehow. Shuu glanced back at the goblins chasing them and complained that they had only ventured out a little, and this was what they got. Tamiko panicked as she announced that the goblins were squeaking after them. Shuu stopped, realizing that there was no way around it. He then told Tamiko to get away. Suddenly, the goblins froze, fear overtaking them as they quickly retreated. Shuu was confused as to why they had fled, but then Tamiko began trembling with fear, her eyes filled with terror, and Shuu himself felt a chill run through his body. When he turned around, he saw a massive creature standing silently and staring at them, its eyes completely black, and Shuu froze in place, shocked that he could not hear its footsteps and wondering just what this was. Tamiko's voice shook as she revealed that the monster's level was above 50. Hearing this, Shuu tightened his grip on his sword and told Tamiko to escape now, saying that he would buy her some time. But Tamiko hesitated. Shuu told her to hurry, but before he could finish speaking, the monster suddenly appeared in front of him and attacked. Shuu quickly summoned his shield, but the moment the blow landed, it shattered completely, sending him flying through the air. He coughed blood as he crashed heavily to the ground. His arm twisted as he struggled in pain. Tamiko called out to him in alarm, telling him to get a grip. Unable to move, Shuu muttered that things were bad. The giant beast then reached toward him, and Shuu realized that he was going to die there as the creature lifted him by the head. The monster opened its mouth, horrifying him, and tightened its grip, causing him to writhe in agony as he desperately tried to break free. Meanwhile, Tamiko, unable to watch any longer, charged in. Her small body landed on the beast's shoulder and bit into it as she shouted at it, calling it a damn ape and demanding that it let go of Abe's Shuu. Shuu was shocked to see her, but the beast quickly smacked her off its shoulder with ease. Seeing blood on the beast's fur, Shu's expression froze. Nearby, Tamiko's small body fell motionless to the ground, covered in blood. Witnessing this, Shuu screamed in rage and immediately activated his fungal balls, shouting at the beast while hurling them, which burst into flames and allowed him to break free from its grip. Without hesitation, he rushed toward Tamiko, but as he reached out to grab her, he realized that his arm had been torn off, and pain began to throb through his body. He looked up to see the beast roaring in anger as it launched another attack, which he narrowly evaded, but on the next strike he was hit in the back, and its claws pierced through his flesh, lifting him toward its mouth. In that moment, Shuu forced his hands forward and detonated fungal balls inside the beast's mouth, causing it to roar in pain as he crashed to the ground. As he fell, he looked toward Tamiko's unmoving body and desperately crawled to her, and when he finally reached her, he picked her up with his regenerating hand. He then noticed fragments of shattered shells nearby and recalled that Tamiko's second fungal ability was the fungal filament shell. It created a hard, lightweight shell for protection, much like a turtle shell. So at the very least, Tamiko had managed to guard against the attack. Even so, his hope began to waver as he looked at her motionless form. But he forced himself to believe that Tamiko would not die. He absolutely would not let her die. Immediately, Shuu rushed back to their hideout. When they arrived, Shuu immediately tried his best to treat her. Panicking, he wondered if there was any other medicinal plant he could use. As he squeezed some plants onto her wounds, he shouted, reminding her that she was a magical beast and that she should not let some monkey swat her like some fly. He urged her to hang in there and promised that he would do something to make her better. In his mind, he recalled that even though she was weak and a coward, she had tried to save him. At the time, he had completely broken down and accepted his death. If Tamiko had not come to him then, he would have died. Seeing that Tamiko still had not woken up despite treating her, Shuu desperately told her to wake up and questioned whether they were not going to ascend together. He began to hate the fact that although he could heal his arm and his abdomen as he pleased, he could not do anything for his partner if she got injured. He wondered why he even had this power if he could not use it to save her. Shuu held her small hands and desperately wondered what he should do. If she was not with him, then he would be alone. Suddenly, he noticed something swirling. It was the strange ability he had recently acquired. Without any hesitation, he squeezed out that fungal ball, pouring the liquid into Tamiko's mouth, onto her hand, and over the areas where her wounds were. At that moment, Tamiko coughed and her eyes finally opened. She first noticed Shuu, who was on the brink of tears. She asked why he was crying. Shuu quickly denied it, reasoning that something had gotten into his eyes, and that was all. The next day, Tamiko returned to her energetic attitude. She remarked that it was a useful ability and that with him around, injuries would not be much of a problem. Shuu replied that these had an absurd healing factor, but they took a lot out of him to make. Finally, they discovered that his fifth fungal ability was the recovery ball, and that the liquid inside the ball healed injuries. Shuu then added that even so, the food they had stockpiled for emergencies sure ran out fast. Well, they had been able to come back alive from that huge level difference encounter, so he was sure eating this much would not come back to bite them. But they had barely gone out, and this had happened, so he wondered what kind of level it would take to get out of there. Suddenly, Tamiko stopped and apologized to him. She turned to her in confusion. Tamiko confessed that there was something she had not told him. Shuu echoed her statement in confusion, wondering what she had not told him. Tamiko told him that when they first met, she had said that her mom had a partner. Shuu recalled that and stated that if he became as strong as that guy, there would be hope. Shuu then remembered that Tamiko had been born 5 years ago, and that Tamiko's mom had died last year, but he wondered what had happened to that partner. He turned to her, and Kamiko, whose eyes filled with despair, revealed that her mom's partner had died on the 49th floor. Her mom, who had been pregnant with her at the time, had managed to run away. Once they climbed the stairs to the 49th floor, there would be a boss monster. It was stronger than any Oni, ogre, or wraith. It was a true monster. Tamiko narrated to Shuu that her mom and that human had a life-or-death battle with the boss on the 49th floor. The boss's strength was far beyond their assumptions. Realizing that they could not beat it, they decided to retreat. However, for some reason, the entrance door would not budge at all. So they decided to take refuge on the 50th floor stairway. To return to the surface, the two of them planned to fight the boss. After a week's time, they challenged the boss of floor 49 again. The hunter was defeated. Her mommy retreated to the 50th floor and gave birth to her. Her mom got married, so that was supposed to be the last time she would help the hunter. She remembered that her mommy always wanted to meet up with her daddy. So when she got bigger, they would leave this place together. Her mom said that the door was a one-way trap. She gasped in disbelief, wondering if it could only be opened from the outside. Tamiko continued, explaining that they believed there was a switch somewhere, so they frantically searched for it, but they were unable to find it. While they were being attacked, her mom told her to go down first and that her mom would come right after. But in the end, it had been to let her get away. Tamiko's words faltered as tears began streaming down her face. She comforted her, realizing that she had been doing her best on her own since then. He then stroked her head. She released a heavy sigh as he thought about the boss. He asked her what kind it was. Tamiko revealed that it was a slime. She repeated the word in surprise, wondering if she meant those semi-transparent blobs of liquid. Tamiko confirmed that it was a massive round shape. No matter how they attacked it, it did not budge at all. Hearing that, Shuu silently thought that it seemed to match with what he knew. Tamiko suddenly admitted that when she first met him, he did not know anything and was mentally weak to boot. If she was completely honest with him, she had thought his spirit would break. Shuu agreed that it was true. He noted in his mind that even though he was a loner, he was quite fond of being an observer of others. If Tamiko had told him that back then, he was not sure he would have been able to take it. Tamiko continued, telling him that when her mom came there, she was level 38 and her partner was over level 50. Hearing that, Shuu concluded that in other words, unless they became strong enough to defeat not only the monsters there, but that boss as well, getting out would be very difficult. The two of them immediately fell silent at the unrealistic condition. Shuu then asked how her injuries were. Tamiko reassured him that it was okay, even though she liked the recovery balls. She repeated her statement to him again, as if hinting at something. Shuu responded that she seemed fine and told her that he would make one for now. Then he asked Tamiko if she wanted to go to the surface to meet her dad. She admitted immediately that it was one of the reasons she wanted to meet him, but she had heard a lot about it from her mommy. The surface was also perfectly, all sparkly. There were a lot of people, and the cities were eye-poppingly large. There were things so delicious that their cheeks would not stop squeaking. There was also the so-called sun on the ceiling, a very big light testicle. She corrected her that it was not a testicle. Tamiko added that at night they could see scenery full of sparkling stars, and that she would like to look at it. She could not help but smile. Tamiko glanced at him, adding that she had also heard that the surface had a lot of good-looking males. Hearing that, Shuu pointed out that it had gotten a different meaning fast. Tamiko reflected that she was weak, so she had given up on reaching it, but really, she had always been thinking of leaving this place. At the time she met Shuu, she thought this was her last chance. She harshly remarked that he was smooth all over with a delicate face, did not know anything, and was a damn weakling at level 1. But she cut her off and gave a sarcastic reply, saying he was sorry to be so disappointing. Tamiko added that even so, she was glad that it was him. Hearing that, Shuu was stunned. Tamiko said that Shuu was a good guy. She somehow understood now what mommy meant, that being together with their partner was an exciting experience. Embarrassed at her confession, Shuu squeezed the fungal ball on her face. Then he thought that somehow, lately, it felt like he was going with the flow. Moments later, as they were about to sleep, Tamiko asked him what he wanted to do when he reached the surface. Shuu answered that first he would confirm what had happened to the surface with his own eyes. After that, he would go for some tasty stuff like yakiniku or ramen, drink some beer, sleep on a bed, then wear better clothes, and if there were smartphones, he would watch videos. After that, marriage maybe. He admitted that when he thought about all this, he felt more driven to go through with it. Tamiko turned to him and asked if he would not continue to be a hunter. Shuu asked in surprise whether that sort of choice was also available. Well, he would think about it when he got out. Tamiko remarked that one day Shuu would get there. If it was him, then he would become an amazing hunter. She insisted that her eyes were not wrong. She told her that he was flattered and asked if it was not because he was the first hunter she had seen. Tamiko answered that it was because she was partnered with him. She was momentarily stunned, then suddenly burst into laughter. Tamiko immediately complained that this was a serious conversation. But the moment she tickled her belly, she began begging for more. She then remarked that an amateur and a small animal had managed to survive in this hellhole for half a year. And if anything, that was quite amazing. Filled with newfound resolve, he added that yesterday had been a harsh experience, but from tomorrow onward, they would continue advancing steadily. They would keep hunting wolves and goblins, and someday they would get revenge on that freaking monkey. But he was afraid that was a goal for the long term. So first, they should become more experienced. For now, they should aim for level 50. Let's go with that. Tamiko agreed. Shuu told her not to say it like that. Deep inside, Shuu swore to himself that no matter how long it took, he was going to reach the surface. If he was being honest, the trauma from meeting the Wraith would remain for a while. Even so, he had to keep on going, together with Tamiko. Suddenly, Tamiko called out to him and recalled that he wanted to get married, right? Shuu answered that if he got the chance, then maybe. Tamiko fidgeted, admitting that unlike her, Abe Shuu was smooth, so he was not really her type. After saying that, she glanced at him. She turned her back again and said that his personality was not bad. Shuu was serious and would take care of his family. She stopped again and glanced at him, then continued, saying that if he insisted and if there were no other good male partners, she would not mind marrying him. Without hesitation, Shuu answered that it was impossible because Tamiko was a squirrel after all. Hearing that, Tamiko sent a powerful blow to his face. Meanwhile, somewhere else, it was not until the fifth host that the wandering parasite developed anything resembling an ego. The first host was a cockroach. Back then, she was not aware of her own existence. She only had an accumulation of the host's memories and a copy of its abilities. Furthermore, if the host was eaten or there was a living being near the host's dead body, she would transfer to that living being. It was not a conscious decision but rather instinctual. The fifth host was a wolf. Compared to her previous hosts, the brain volume was a lot bigger, so as a consequence, she had developed a consciousness. She could understand the world and her environment on her own. She was able to experience everything through her host. Food and water, natural enemies and brethren, children and territories, vegetation and caves, the darkness and the hard ground. Her own emotions and sensations. Hunger, anger, joy, thirst, fear, irritation, pain, sound, and smell. As a parasite at the time, she still had no intention or means to control her host's actions or thoughts. She lived in the host's shadow, experiencing everything it did. But one day, what she saw through the host's eyes made her grow exponentially as an ego. What she saw was a living being with little hair that resembled a monkey and ran on two legs. Before long, it was defeated and about to be crushed by the big white monkey that appeared. The host only cared about whether or not it could find any remains after the battle. The difference in power was made clear. Without an arm, only death was awaiting it. However, even without an arm, it resisted the monkey, frantically ending that existence. And like that, the living being escaped. The impact of what unfolded created a dazzling spark. It lit a clear and unmistakable emotion within her. It was beautiful. Then, before long, her host was dead. Again, she moved to a different one. Faced with death, the image of that living being fighting against that monkey without an arm was deeply etched into her memory. It's been 2.5 years since they met the Wraith. They are currently experiencing the third spring season, even though in this Otsuka metro station there are no seasons. After defeating another beast, Shuu immediately swallowed its sporangium. Then he calls out to Tamiko, announcing that it's finally here. They had achieved level 50. The two quickly made a high five. Shuu then suggested that they should go to the oasis before they go out hunting again. He wants to wash himself immediately. Tamiko covered her nose and commented that he smells so bad. While brushing their teeth, Shuu noticed that the unicorn is here again today. This creature with a wee bit of a chip on its pointy horn has been nicknamed Unio-san. It's been about a year since they have been able to come this close to it. As usual, he can't hear the unicorn's footsteps. He wondered if this is its fungal ability. He's sure it's the same deal with the Wraith as well. Without hesitation, Shuu greeted Unio-san good morning. However, it just ignored him. Shuu muttered a curse, saying it's still far away from opening up to him. Even though he has a feeling it's coming here when they are here. He can only think that it's some sort of pure maiden from one of those fantasy novels. Tamiko told him that she's also a maiden, and Shuu nodded in response. Suddenly, she boldly asked if he was a virgin. Shuu was surprised, and remarked that her mom shouldn't teach her daughter such useless words. Tamiko pressed for an answer, while Shuu immediately looked away and said, never mind, they should just go. Afterward, they went to another area. As he looks around, Shuu mentions that they snuck into the goblin area before, but to think there is a place like this here. Tamiko told him that it's the grass-covered ogre plains. Shuu silently recalls that the ogres are the leading species on this 50th floor of Otsuka Metro in terms of fighting and ability. Their toughness exceeds the Wraiths, and they are highly intelligent. They should proceed with caution. Right away, Shuu activated his 10th fungal ability, the sensory spores. Using the ability, the super small particles that are invisible to the naked eye are ejected from his body into the atmosphere. Once it sticks to something, he can sense its outline. At that moment, Shuu sensed that inside on the right, there is one beast on top of a pillar nest. He doesn't sense any other beasts. With that, Shuu decided that they will hunt it. Before jumping off from his shoulder, Tamiko reminded him not to squeak his guard down. The moment the beast spotted him, it immediately leapt down from the pillar and confronted Shuu. When Shuu saw the ape's face, he was stunned, thinking that it was somehow a good-looking ape. Tamiko cheered that the current Shuu can beat it. Suddenly, the ape released a deafening roar, prompting Shuu to activate his sixth fungal ability, the fungal filament hammer. He remarked internally that he was about to lose to a good-looking ape. Summoning his shield, Shuu shouted at the ape not to underestimate him before charging forward without hesitation. As his hammer struck the target, he questioned whether the attack had been effective. He noted in his thoughts that, however, these apes have very wide gaps between their attacks. So if he aims for that and continuously hits its body, just then, the ape retreated and activated its fungal ability as something sprouted from its finger before charging at him again. Tamiko quickly warned Shuu to be careful. The ape powered up. While waiting for the ape to reach him, Shuu thought that the creature was like a junkie. Before the ape's powerful fist could land, Shuu activated his ninth fungal ability, enhanced jump, dodging the strike before delivering a blow while descending. The ape panted heavily from the fierce battle, and Shuu noticed that it is pretty exhausted now, and Shuu wondered if he should go for a battle of attrition now. Suddenly, Tamiko called out to him and warned him that the others might be coming here. Hearing that, Shuu decided that he can't hold back, so he will go all out. He then activated his 12th fungal ability, the smoke screen ball, instantly filling the area with thick smoke that blocked all visibility. Using his sensory spores, Shuu located the ape's exact position and immediately activated enhanced jump, leaping toward it before swinging his fungal hammer with full force. Afterward, he vanished back into the smoke while the enraged ape searched blindly for him. Taking advantage of the confusion, Shuu repeatedly delivered powerful blows to its body until he finally defeated the ape beast. He apologized to the creature and said he will put him to rest now, before ending its life completely. Looking around, Shuu remarks that this is quite a nice sight. It's kind of a pity that they have to snatch away the nest. But it's the victor's right. He then noticed that Tamiko had surely grown up. Tamiko told him, but she's 8 years old now, so she was still in her growth period. She's still nowhere close to mom's level, but she thinks she's about as big as she was. She recalls that Tamiko's mother was actively hunting until she was 35 years old. He wonders if their years are counted the same as human years. Tamiko is leveling slower than him and only has 4 abilities. Shuu then called out to Tamiko, mentioning that little by little, they are able to hunt ogres, right? Tamiko confirmed that's right. Shuu added that they have become strong enough to win in this area if it's a one-on-one fight, right? Tamiko agreed. Shuu then suggested that he think they should challenge a boss at least once for now. He explained that right now, even if they don't win against the boss, they can try fighting it and collect all the information they can, and they should be strong enough to run away. Tamiko replied that she's sure that Shuu is currently just as strong as her mom's partner. Even so, her mom's partner did not win. So they should do that only after preparing some more. Shuu agreed, saying she's not wrong. But he insisted on the idea that after experiencing it once, it would serve as a measuring stick, and they would know what to work on. They have a way to protect themselves, and they have the fungal recovery abilities, so at the very least they won't die. Despite hearing those, Tamiko still hesitated. Shuu realized that she's feeling anxious. It's no wonder, because this is an opponent that her mother's party lost their lives to, after all. Silence filled between them. To ease the tension, Shuu tickled her belly. Tamiko complains that this is a serious conversation, so stop joking around, but just like before, she quickly submitted. Then she said she understood the logic behind his idea. However, she's got one condition. She will agree if they go for this floor's boss. Shuu reacted in surprise, realizing that there's a boss on this floor as well. Isn't this the first time he's hearing of this? Tamiko replied that, well, even if he says boss, that one is a stray metro beast. Afterwards, they headed to the boss area. Shuu was surprised to realize that there's a place like this as well. It seems like an underground waterway. He remarks that this is completely irrational, a metro flood that is. Tamiko informed him that it should be around here somewhere. She heard that it's the same level as her mom's partner. Shuu replied, so that means it's around his level. Then he wondered about the stray metro beast. Currently, Tamiko is level 28. Her abilities are enhanced hearing, fungal filament shell, level scouter, and super hardening front teeth. Then Abe Shuu is level 50. His abilities are regenerative fungal filament sword, fireball, fungal filament shield, recovery ball, fungal filament hammer, electric ball, fungal filament great shield, enhanced jump, sensory spores, fungal filament ball. Its effects is unknown. Then smoke screen balls and repellent spores against monsters. Tamiko explains that while it's supposed to be on an upper floor, it somehow wandered in here and cannot return because of the boss on the 49th floor. So it stayed here, became stronger, and now roams the place. Hearing that, Shuu mentioned that it sounds familiar. Tamiko continued, saying that its den is in the direction of the stairs. There's a possibility of encountering the boss if it tries to fly there. Shuu asked in surprise. Can it fly? Is it a bird? Tamiko denied, and was about to say something when all of a sudden a noise echoed nearby. Shuu quickly told Tamiko to hide until it's over. Behind him, a beast flew toward him at tremendous speed, and sensing its approach, Shuu immediately lowered himself while throwing filament balls that exploded upon colliding with the creature. However, the beast emerged completely unharmed. Shuu was shocked as he realized the creature had mimicked a rock, finally understanding that it was a gargoyle. The beast stared at him hungrily, and Shuu muttered how scary it was and thought that this guy is definitely strong. He urged himself to move, saying it's not the time for regrets, and immediately activated his 8th fungal ability, the fungal filament great shield. At that moment, the beast unleashed a powerful shockwave that forced Shuu to halt. Confused, he wondered what it was while complaining that his ears hurt. The beast then landed directly in front of him, leaving Shuu stunned as he realized that on top of a flying type, it's also fast and powerful. In addition, it has ultrasonic waves. Impairing someone with it, and then attacking seems to be its winning pattern. He immediately threw a smoke screen, causing thick smoke to spread throughout the area. As he concealed himself within the smoke, he thought that he needed to do something about those ultrasonic waves. Suddenly, he sensed killing intent approaching, and the beast attacked him with its sharp claws, though Shuu barely managed to dodge in time. In that instant, he finally understood that bats understand their environment by echolocation. Shuu gritted his teeth, realizing that he made his vision worse for nothing. While running to create distance, the beast unleashed another ultrasonic wave, causing Shuu to stop in pain as he covered his ears. He cursed internally, noticing that the creature was using the same pattern. However, the moment the beast rushed toward him to close the distance, Shuu instantly swung his sword, sending the gargoyle flying away from him instead. Shuu smirked, remarking that it was close, but the pattern is not going to work on him anymore. It was a right decision to use the recovery ball as an earplug. He noted in his thoughts that, however, that beast's skin is very hard, almost like a stone. If he doesn't put everything he got into his swing, he's not going to be able to reach its flesh. Keeping a distance is disadvantageous. He has to make this a close-ranged fight. With that in mind, Shuu activated his ability and leapt from wall to wall until he reached the beast in midair. The instant he attacked with his sword, the beast blocked it with its claw, shocking Shuu as his body fell back toward the ground. The beast launched another strike, but Shuu defended himself with his fungal shield, reminding himself that it was fungal filament after all. Using the wall as leverage, he pushed off once more and charged toward the creature, delivering a powerful blow to its stomach that sent it crashing to the ground. Without wasting any time, Shuu followed up with another attack using his electric ball. The moment it struck the beast, electricity surged through its body, electrocuting it. This was Shu's 7th fungal ability, electric ball. The moment its cocoon is broken, it discharges electricity. Shuu noted that even if it's damn hard, if it's affected by electricity, then there are gaps in its armor. Shuu landed beside the convulsing beast and swiftly severed its wings, thinking that with this, it couldn't fly anymore. Now all he has to do is just shave away at it like usual. However, his thoughts were interrupted when the electrified beast suddenly stood up again, its eyes fixed directly on him. The creature charged once more, and Shuu blocked it with his shield before slashing at it again, causing blood to burst from its torn flesh. Even so, the beast continued attacking relentlessly. Shuu was stunned that it still refused to go down. He continued striking it, severing its limbs one after another, unable to believe that this guy is still not done. Then, all of a sudden, the beast unleashed another ultrasonic wave attack. Shuu endured the pain caused by the deafening noise, and the moment it subsided, he immediately slammed his shield into the beast, staggering it briefly before using his sword to slice its body apart piece by piece, finally defeating it completely. After the intense battle, Shuu let out a deep breath. Tamiko called out to him, praising his efforts and saying that he had done an amazing job. Shuu replied that the beast was seriously strong, and it's not just attacks, but it was tenacious as well. Deep inside, however, Shuu felt despair as he reflected on how the beast was alone here, in a place full of enemies. Even so, it didn't want to die. It survived in this hellhole up until today. And if they hadn't come here today? Sensing his silence, Tamiko interrupted his thoughts, and Shuu gently stroked her head, reassuring her that it was nothing. He then suggested that they partake, and Tamiko asked if he meant its sporangium. After extracting the sporangiums from the beast's body, Shuu turned to her and said that they should be diligent and prepare for tomorrow's provision. Tamiko was amazed that he's facing forward, then said, but she will soon squeak to his head. Starting from the middle is a bit extreme. Shuu told her he saw it, even though it's only now. Tamiko asked what he meant. Shuu explained that what he meant was their expression of gratitude. They should be grateful for this one's life. Internally, Shuu admitted that he's aware of these selfish thoughts, but there's definitely something that he has gained from it. And the opponent to throw it all against exists on the upper floor. The next day, Shuu turned to Tamiko and asked if she was ready, but Tamiko remained silent. Shuu understood that she was anxious, and as expected, even after everything they had done yesterday, it had not helped. Tamiko then asked him to promise that he would not go overboard. Shuu assured her that he understood. With that, the two began their journey toward the 49th floor. As they moved through the area, Tamiko informed him that an orthros was ahead. Tamiko's third fungal ability allowed her to measure another person's level. In other words, it functioned as a level scouter. Until now, they had been relying on Tamiko's mother's knowledge, but with this ability, they were now able to determine each individual's level. Tamiko informed him that the orthros was level 40 and therefore not a threat. She asked what he would do, and Shuu decided that being ambushed would be bad, so they should attack immediately. In an instant, Shuu defeated the monster and extracted the sporangium from its body. He noted that they should prepare as best as they could before facing the boss, and Tamiko agreed with the idea. She told him that after this, they would arrive at the stairs leading to the 49th floor. Shuu was momentarily stunned as he stared at the small entrance ahead. He then wondered whether there was any chance of the boss chasing them through the stairs. Tamiko did not know whether it would even fit through there. Shuu wondered if the boss was really that big. Without any more hesitation, Shuu decided that they should go. As he climbed the stairs, the sight brought him back to his salaryman days. He did not know what was going on outside, but if he could pass through here, he would be able to find out. Moments later, Shuu remarked that the pathway was quite long, so they should rest for a bit. Tamiko told him that she was not tired yet. Shuu pointed out that she was always on his shoulder and wished that he could be carried for once. Tamiko quickly suggested that she could simply drag him along the ground instead. Shuu apologized and clarified that it had only been a joke. After that, they continued along the path, and not long afterward, they finally arrived. Tamiko warned him that the boss had probably already noticed them as well. Shuu gently carried her small body and placed her on the ground, telling her to simply watch from there. Anxiously, Tamiko reminded him to make sure he did not go overboard, and that if things became dangerous, he should immediately retreat to safety. Shuu assured her that he would keep that in mind before setting off into the area where the boss was. Upon finally seeing it in person, Shu's body froze. A massive creature was only a short distance away from him. His body shuddered at the sight of it. Although he could not see any facial features, he knew for a fact that it recognized his existence as prey. At that moment, something flew toward him, but Shuu immediately sensed it and blocked it with his shield. Without hesitation, the slime launched another attack, extending its body like a tentacle at incredible speed toward Shuu and forcing him to dodge immediately. As he avoided the strike, he reflected on how fast it was and how there was no preemptive movement before it attacked. Under the continuous assault, Shu's shield crumbled apart. The tentacles then sprayed liquid toward him, and Shuu quickly summoned another shield to block it, only to realize as the shield slowly dissolved that the liquid was acid. He immediately retaliated by throwing a fireball and an electric ball at the slime. The moment they struck its body, they exploded, melting the areas they hit. Seeing this, Shuu wondered whether the attack had worked, but the melted portions soon bounced back and returned to their original forms. Shuu was shocked to see that the slime had already returned to how it was. Instantly, the slime attacked again, stretching countless tentacles toward him. Shuu cursed aloud, realizing that the slime remained completely unfazed. He noted in his thoughts that not only could he not read its movements because it did not have any joints, but it could also reach anywhere within the space. The moment acid touched Shu's sword, the blade melted instantly. While running from the pursuing tentacles, he desperately wondered what he should do. Suddenly, the area exploded and thick smoke spread everywhere. Seeing this, Tamiko anxiously called out to Shuu. Meanwhile, Shuu, who had managed to survive the previous attack, recalled Tamiko's words about her mother explaining that even though the slime was an absolute monster, it had internal organs located around its center. If an attack could reach them, there might be a chance. With that in mind, Shuu quickly threw his sword toward the slime. The moment it struck the jelly-like body, he immediately slammed his fungal hammer onto the embedded blade, forcing it deeper into the creature. Shuu wondered internally whether it had worked, and whether he had managed to reach the slime's weak point. Suddenly, the slime's body trembled, and without warning, it erupted, releasing tentacles in all directions. Several of them struck Shuu, throwing him backward. As he was pushed away, he felt intense pain surge through his body before crashing to the ground, where he saw his severed leg lying nearby. Shuu gasped in agony, realizing in his thoughts that the acid from the tentacle had eroded his leg, and that he was already at his limit. Immediately, he called out to Tamiko and told her that they were running away. Tamiko quickly responded. While Shuu attempted to run toward the exit, he reflected that he had at least gained experience with how the slime attacked and how fast it was. He considered that a satisfactory result. Just then, Tamiko warned him that something was coming from behind. Shuu realized that acidic liquid was about to hit him, and when he looked back, he saw that it was rapidly approaching. He immediately recognized that the situation was bad. If he got drenched in the acid, he would have to sidestep it. However, that would not work because Tamiko was there, meaning he could not dodge freely without putting her in danger. Shuu quickly stopped, summoned his shield just in time, and blocked the acid as it splashed against it. Tamiko screamed in concern as she watched him. Afterward, Shuu slowly opened his eyes, and the first thing he saw was Tamiko, who worriedly called out to him and asked if he had woken up. She told him to make haste down the stairs. Critically wounded, Shuu expressed his relief upon seeing that she was safe. Tamiko thanked him and said she would squeak him to the safety zone so he could rest. Right away, Tamiko bit off his skin and dragged him, but Shuu groaned in pain and quickly protested that his body was heavily wounded. He told her that he was grateful, but he would do it himself. Slowly, Shuu sat up and was shocked to see that his leg had not grown back. Tamiko scolded him, reminding Shuu of what she had said, and that he was squeaking too much just because he could heal. Because he had taken so much damage, he was still not done recovering. She added that even his delicate features looked rotten, just like Wraith's. Despite the pain, Shuu smirked and, with a shaky voice, replied that he guessed he looked a bit more memorable. Internally, he muttered a curse, thinking about what a horrible last-ditch effort it had been. He decided that for now, if he did not focus on getting back to the hideout, the hunger he felt was pretty intense, even more so than the pain. Just then, Shu's body collapsed on the stairs and rapidly descended to the ground. Tamiko quickly went to him, filled with worry. Shuu thought that this was weird, as Tamiko had made a lot of progress while he was out cold. However, his dissolved leg and burned skin had yet to recover, and given how much time had passed, they should have been further along. Shu's eyes widened as he wondered to himself whether his recovery had stopped. Then he realized that there were so many damaged spots on his body that his stamina had run out, which meant that at this rate, they would not recover and he would not be able to move. Shuu let out a cry, muttering that he needed something to eat. Slowly, his hand reached out to Tamiko, but immediately stopped as he realized what he was about to do, telling himself that it was wrong. However, Tamiko reassured him that it was fine if he ate her. She repeated once again that he could eat her, and that if it meant he would get better, then she was fine with it. This time, she would be the one to save him. Tamiko added that if it was Abe Shuu, then even if he were alone, he would eventually take down the boss on his own and move up to the surface. Without letting her finish, Shuu told her not to be stupid, saying that it was not possible for him to fill himself by eating her and that he would be better off eating rocks. With that determination, Shuu forced himself to eat it. However, he coughed non-stop as he spat it out. He then asked Tamiko to bring him something, saying that it did not matter whether it was a mushroom or grass. Immediately, Tamiko acknowledged this and told him that she would be right back. She then sprinted very fast, and just ahead of her, there was a goblin. Without wasting a moment, she killed it and dragged its corpse to where Shuu was. She called out to him and announced that she had brought mushrooms and a goblin. She added that she could do it if she tried, and that she had squeaked the goblin real good. Shuu reacted in amazement, but then he noticed that his hand had begun trembling frantically. He alarmed himself that this was no good, because if he had zero stamina, his fungal abilities would not work either. Tamiko told him to hang on. Fired with determination, Shuu forced himself to move and hungrily ate the mushrooms. Then he grabbed the goblin's corpse, tore it apart, ripped its flesh, and immediately swallowed it. At that instant, his regenerating abilities activated again. He immediately squeezed some healing balls for Tamiko and told her to hold on. In an instant, her body healed. She asked him if he had recovered. Shuu thanked her, saying it was only possible because of her. He declared that when they left this place, they would absolutely do it together. After that, for a while, they observed the boss from the stairs. Shuu reacted in shock upon discovering that it was level 70 and questioned whether Tamiko was sure. Tamiko replied that it was weird because, according to her mother, it had been around level 60 before. She pointed out that the outside of the door leading to the outside was full of slime, and that it seemed that, thanks to those cornered monsters, the boss had gotten bigger. Shuu finally understood, realizing that this was how it had been able to grow, even in there. He then asked if there were any slimes on floor 50. Tamiko answered that there were a few normal ones. Right away, they set off to hunt slimes. After killing one effortlessly, Shuu understood that its weak spot was just like what Tamiko's mother had said. He realized that it could be educational. Suddenly, acid dripped onto Tamiko's fur, causing her to panic as she shouted that the acid was smearing all over her and pleaded for her roots to be saved. Without delay, Shuu gave her a recovery ball. Then, in his mind, he noted that to take revenge, they had to observe and study, and outside of that, they could only increase their levels. 2 years had passed since he fought the slime. Shuu was finally at level 65 and had 16 fungal abilities, while Tamiko was level 40 and had 5 fungal abilities. She offered to give Shuu a smart haircut with her front teeth if he wanted. Shuu replied that all she wanted to do was make him bald. Tamiko told him to stop nitpicking and stay still, reassuring him that he would feel a lot of relief. But Shuu still refused and told her to stop because all he wanted was to smooth his face. Suddenly, Shuu stopped, noticing that the unicorn had arrived. Shuu quickly greeted it with good morning, and the unicorn snorted in response. Shuu told it not to do that and understood that it was requesting recovery balls. Without delay, he gave one to the unicorn. After eating it, the unicorn was finally satisfied. Shuu suddenly called out to it and said that today they would likely have to part ways. Today, they were going to get revenge on the 49th floor's boss, and if they won, they would go up. They would not return here. Shuu added that it was not set in stone, but the unicorn and the two of them had finally become friends, so it was a bit of a shame. Shuu told the unicorn to stay healthy. Tamiko added that it should not forget them. All of a sudden, the unicorn turned around. Seeing that, Shuu wondered if it had not gotten through to it, but he was glad that they had gotten to meet it in the end. The unicorn suddenly dashed and crashed itself into the wall, leaving both Shuu and Tamiko in shock. Shuu tried to call out to Yunio-san. The unicorn bit its broken horn and dropped it into Shu's hands. Shuu reacted in surprise, realizing that the unicorn was giving it to them, something so great. Tamiko reassured him that it was fine since unicorns could regrow their horns, so if they ever met again, it would squeak a brand new horn. Shuu turned to the unicorn and expressed his gratitude, swearing that he would take good care of it and that someday he would come and see the unicorn again. After saying that, the unicorn let out a loud shriek before sprinting away. Both Shuu and Tamiko's eyes filled with tears. Shuu remarked that after receiving something like this, losing would be very uncool. Tamiko agreed with him. Meanwhile, outside their hideout, a beast desperately fled as a rain of acid flew toward it. The creature continued running until it suddenly stopped after encountering the boss slime. At the same time, Shuu and Tamiko packed their food and crawled out from their hideout. Shuu declared to Tamiko that it was time to go, and before leaving, he bowed at the entrance of the hideout in gratitude for everything it had provided them. Seeing this, Tamiko quickly followed his example. Elsewhere, the beast that had been chased by the slimes was swallowed whole by the boss slime, and its body melted away until nothing remained but bones. Meanwhile, Shuu and Tamiko prepared themselves for battle, and Shuu announced that they would finally bid farewell to that floor. In the middle of using Tamiko's level scouter ability, she observed the slime boss, and after gathering information, she immediately returned to Shuu and informed him that it was stronger than before, squeaking above level 70. Shuu replied that he understood, but the memory of the battle from 2 years ago resurfaced in his mind, causing his fist to tremble. Seeing this, Tamiko nervously asked if he was scared, her own body shaking as she declared that she would fight together with him too. That fake acorn-like thing would crack before her. Hearing that, Shuu finally relaxed slightly and let out a small chuckle before patting her head and joking that it would be funny if she became bald again. Tamiko angrily shouted, telling him to forget that ever happened. Shuu realized to himself that even when fighting alone, he would not be entirely by himself. He bumped his fist against Tamiko's tiny hand and said that when push came to shove, he would be counting on his partner. Tamiko confidently told him to leave it to her before suddenly calling out to him again and telling him to win. Shuu nodded in response. He then removed his clothes, leaving himself half naked to prepare for battle, and summoned his katana. Standing before the towering enemy, Shuu wondered if it was because of his trauma from the past 2 years. It looked bigger than before. At that moment, the slime attacked, but Shuu swiftly dodged, causing the attack to crash into the ground instead. Gritting his teeth, Shuu remarked that, as usual, it packed quite the power. He immediately activated another ability, causing his sword to glow brightly before he slashed through one of the slime's tentacles. In the moment it was severed, acid splashed out violently. Seeing the result, Shuu realized that this method would work. The ability he had used was his 5th fungal ability, luminescent spores. If these spores enveloped his sword or shield, they increased the sharpness or toughness of the item. Shuu then activated another ability, and threads began twisting from his back before forming into 2 arms. This was his 6th fungal ability, fungal filament arms. The grown arms were also able to use abilities. Just then, the hands growing from Shu's back each summoned their own swords, creating a 3-sword style for the second round. At that moment, the slime attacked once again with its tentacles. Shuu gritted his teeth, thinking about how those tentacles had no joints or indication of starting motion, how there were seldom any feints, and how their movements were difficult to follow. But it was fine, he just had to concentrate. With swift movements, Shuu severed the incoming tentacles one after another. He shouted at the slime, taunting it and asking if it had missed him, demanding that it keep coming at him. Acid burst out from the severed tentacles, but Shuu smirked, convinced that it was going great. He recalled that the slime was made up of 3 different layers. The first layer was called the membrane, the slime's cellular flexible muscles that covered the inner fluid. The second layer was called body fluid. Those exposed to it would be subjected to a strong acid. The third layer was called the nucleus, which contained the brain and the other vital organs. The information Tamiko's mother had left her was true. If they destroyed the nucleus, the slime would die. Its nucleus was protected by a large quantity of fluid. When it came to the boss slime, the amount was nothing to joke about at all. So the most straightforward and steady tactic for him was to chip away at its tentacles. With that strategy in mind, Shuu charged toward the slime again and severed more tentacles using both his swords and fungal balls. The torn tentacles crashed onto the ground as acid splashed toward him, but he immediately blocked it with his shield. Shuu then skidded backward across the ground, panting heavily as he admitted to himself that, as expected, the drain on his stamina was enormous from continuously using these fungal abilities. Each successful attack diminished the amount of luminescent spores, and he was already at his limit to replenish them. He wondered if slimes got fatigued. Compared to when he started, the slime was definitely getting smaller. With that, Shuu decided it was time to take a break. He immediately threw a fungal smoke screen ball and detonated it around himself, causing thick smoke to spread through the area. Taking advantage of the cover, he quickly exited the boss chamber. Tamiko welcomed him back, and Shuu exhaustedly admitted that he needed a small break. Tamiko praised him, saying that it was going well, and offered him some water before scolding him and reminding him that his footwork was important. Suddenly, Shuu called out to her in a serious tone and explained that there might be a need to escape. Its size had decreased, and there were fewer tentacles than before. He would distract the slime while Tamiko looked for the switch to the door. He told her not to take a risk and to return to the front if needed. Tamiko stayed silent for a moment before agreeing, saying that if he thought that, then it was okay. It was best to reach the surface and squeak in their best condition. Shuu paused briefly before telling her that their current foundation was not strong, so they should not let their guard down just because they had gained a little strength. If they did something unreasonable, a failure would mean death. He reminded her that she had gotten angry at him about that before. Hearing that, Tamiko quickly turned toward him. Shuu apologized and admitted that he thought he would not be able to help himself again. He wondered if she did not think its sporangium would hold an amazing ability once they ate it. He added that thanks to this king slime, there were a lot more slimes on the 50th floor. If they did nothing, the oasis might get invaded one day. Unio-san and the oasis helped them out a lot, so it would not hurt to return the favor. Tears began forming in Tamiko's eyes as Shuu poured water over himself and declared that, with that said, he would show her something manly. He told her to make sure she did not miss the moment they took revenge for her mother. Tamiko slapped his face and shouted at him to just go already. Immediately afterward, Shuu rushed back into the boss chamber, declaring that it was time for round 3. Shuu approached the slime, but he noticed that there was no reaction, even when he came this close. It was not sending any tentacles his way either. Could it be dead? But all of a sudden its body wobbled. The next moment, something swirled from its body. Shuu was stunned as he watched the threads slowly form into spikes and immediately recognized that it was a fungal ability. The spike lunged at him, but Shuu dodged it. He quickly activated his abilities and counterattacked by swinging his sword, but his blade was unable to cut through the tentacles. Shuu was shocked to realize that they had suddenly become hard. He could not cut them even with his luminescent spores. The slime made another attack, slamming Shuu with its spiked tentacle, but Shuu managed to dodge it again. He noticed that with those tentacles, their destructive power had increased due to the fungal ability. But now it could only bring out 3 of them. The hardening of the tentacles only extended to around the middle point. And if that was the case, then he would close the gap and aim for its root. The moment he severed the tentacles, acid splashed at him, but he quickly blocked it with his shield. Another 2 tentacles charged at him from behind, but before they could reach him, Shuu leapt into the air and landed back on the ground. He alarmed himself that it was dangerous because the slime had changed its patterns just now. But he now understood how it attacked. It was just as Tamiko had said. He would stake it all on his footwork. Meanwhile, Tamiko hugged her tail tightly as she watched the battle anxiously. But she immediately steeled herself, certain that everything would be fine. Silently, she cheered Shuu on and urged him to do his best. During the battle, after cutting off all the tentacles, Shuu smirked, mentioning that he could finally see the nucleus inside the slime's body. He told himself that with one more strike, he could pierce it with his fungal filament arm. His thoughts immediately faded when, all of a sudden, the slime disappeared from its spot and then appeared right above him. Shuu was momentarily stunned. The slime morphed into spikes and immediately crashed into him. Shuu barely managed to dodge it. He reacted in disbelief, realizing that the actual body was now coming at him. The slime suddenly squirmed and then shot a spike at Shuu. He quickly dodged it, causing the spike to crash into the wall instead. Shuu noted internally that it definitely had destructive power, but it was shaving away its own body fluid to attack. And if it continued to do that, suddenly, at that moment, his arm was hit by one of the slime's attacks, melting his arm instantly, but in no time, his arm regenerated. Shuu panted heavily while the slime's body had shrunk back to its original size. Deep inside, Shuu wondered what this was. It was not as though it was not scary. Even now, he was in the middle of a very dangerous situation. This feeling of just barely managing to stay alive was a little fun. He would not be returning to being a simple salaryman anymore. Shuu remarked that the slime had become a lot smaller now, and that its movements were dull. He then urged the slime to come at him. Immediately, the slime transformed into a massive spike and charged straight toward him, but Shuu slid beneath it and drove his sword into its body while dragging the blade along as he moved, slicing the slime in half. The creature's fluid splashed everywhere as its body split apart, exposing the nucleus hidden within. Shuu slowly approached it, ignoring the acid beneath his feet as he walked toward the exposed core. He quietly muttered an apology before ending its life completely. The moment he sliced through the nucleus, the remaining fluid spilled out everywhere. Shu's body wavered slightly as he remarked that he had won. Meanwhile, Tamiko approached the slime's corpse, glared at it, and declared that it deserved what happened before stomping on it. Even so, she added that there were no hard feelings. Shu called out to her, and Tamiko immediately jumped into his arms while crying, thanking him and saying that she squeaked all of her gratitude to him. Through her tears, she told him that she was glad he was okay. Shu smiled gently as he accepted her words, though inwardly he wished she would stop drilling into his nipples. He then urged Tamiko that it was time for them to leave and go see the sun above. At that moment, however, a quiet voice suddenly told them to stop. The parasite reflected that together with its hosts up to now, it had battled with this man many times. Every time it saw him, he became stronger and more beautiful. However, its host this time was very powerful. It was convinced that victory against him was not possible, but the question remained, how did that man do that? Even after the link with the slime was cut, it could still clearly picture that light Shuu had made. The parasite wanted to meet him again, so it decided to go after him. If it was in its current state, the parasite could interfere with the consciousness of small hosts. No matter how many times it had to experience death, it would absolutely reach Shuu. Moments later, they finally found the switch, which was embedded somewhere very hidden. Right away, Tamiko pushed the button, and in an instant, a rumbling sound echoed as the entrance finally opened. Shuu noted in his thoughts that, as expected of a boss's sporangium, their levels had gone up and they had also gained new abilities. Tamiko's level increased to 41, and she now had a total of 6 fungal abilities, while Shu's level increased to 66 and he now had 17 fungal abilities. Now that they had overcome the biggest obstacle, there was nothing stopping them from going to the surface. Shuu stepped forward and excitedly declared that they should go all the way to the surface. However, he realized that in reality, it was not that simple. They sprinted through the narrow path, with Shuu cursing aloud that there were slimes again, and that he was already sick of them. Later on, they reached the 41st floor. A beast charged at them, but Shuu countered the attack, killing it immediately. As they ate its sporangium, Shuu remarked that this beast was fairly strong as well. Tamiko revealed that it was around level 40. Shuu wondered if they could sell the fur, and whether they should collect things that looked valuable to sell on the surface. Shuu added that if they had to deal with a small fry as well, then he would run out of stamina. With that, he decided to scatter repellent spores by activating his 13th fungal ability. Shuu then mentioned that, come to think of it, these did not seem to work on Tamiko. Hearing that, Tamiko scolded him for comparing her to beasts. Afterward, they continued on their tracks. Shuu noticed that the more they ascended, the less space there seemed to be on each floor. As their speed kept increasing, 12 days had passed since the battle to the death with the boss. When they reached the 20th floor, they walked along the path, and Shuu mentioned that this was bad because his tension was going away. Tamiko pointed out that it was because his goal had been achieved. Shuu agreed and noted that it was especially important to be careful at times like this, or they would end up making a stupid mistake and die a foolish death. Tamiko remarked that he had improved. Shuu proudly replied that of course he had, because it was him after all. But when Tamiko did not agree, Shuu turned to her, urging her to say something and admitting that it was as bad. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed nearby. Tamiko notified Shuu that there was a fight going on over there. Shuu remarked that they sure were going at it without a care. He then suggested that they go check it out. But Tamiko immediately refused and told him to wait, somehow recognizing that it was a human. She confirmed that she could hear a human's voice. Hearing that, Shuu reacted in shock. Tamiko urgently added that the humans were likely being chased by a beast. Shuu nervously replied that it was really bad and that his tension was going way up. Tamiko glared at him and ordered him to hurry and help the person already, calling him a fool. Hearing that, Shuu immediately rushed toward the scene. Nearby, a man was panting heavily while facing a terrifying beast. Just then, Shuu arrived and asked if he was all right, but the man quickly warned him not to come there because this was a fully matured one. Tamiko informed Shuu that the big one was around level 40 and the human was about level 20. If Shuu did not save him now, It was only a matter of time. However, Shuu hesitated, asking if it was really okay for him to help. He wondered if they would get angry at him for stealing their prey, something like a hunter's manners or something. Nevertheless, with determination, Shuu asked the man if he needed help. The man once again warned him that it was dangerous out there and told Shuu to escape. But before he could finish his sentence, the beast released a poison breath, causing the man to vomit. Shuu immediately recognized that it was poison. While the man was weakened, the beast charged toward him, but without wasting a second, Shuu called out to Tamiko and slammed himself into the beast, stopping it in its tracks. He told Tamiko that he would leave that kid to her. Tamiko quickly obeyed. Shuu then faced the beast, noting that despite the level difference, this guy seemed like a handful. Despite its large frame, he could not see any openings in its movements. In that case, he needed to go with this since he could change the length. Right away, Shuu summoned his fungal hammer. The instant the beast charged at him, Shuu blocked its attack with a shield and was shocked by how heavy it was, questioning whether this beast was a cannonball or something. He immediately activated another ability to increase the hammer's attack power. Raising the weapon, Shuu quietly told the beast that there were no hard feelings before smashing its head with overwhelming force, causing the creature's body to crash lifelessly onto the ground. Shuu released a heavy sigh before turning toward Tamiko and asking how things looked over there. Tamiko replied that the man seemed to be conscious but was unable to move. She asked what they should do. Immediately, Shuu looked for herbs to neutralize the poison in their stock. But suddenly, Tamiko suggested using that ability, thinking it might just work. Immediately, Shuu activated his 11th fungal ability, the green ball. It was a fungal filament ball that contained a similar substance as the recovery ball. During an experiment, they had found that a rat that was poisoned after eating a mushroom got better after drinking the ball's liquid. Shuu decided that if there was a chance, then they should try it. With that, Shuu lifted the man's goggles, and the moment he saw his face, he was stunned. Inwardly, he could not help but remark that the boy was pretty. Although it was not intentional, he did think the boy was cute. He was supposed to be into girls, right? What was wrong with him? Seeing Shuu flustered, Tamiko asked what was wrong. Hearing that, Shuu immediately snapped out of it and told himself that this was not the time to be flustered, and that he needed to hurry up. However, he also thought that having someone else drink their only liquid was kind of immoral. Shuu squeezed the ball and made the boy drink it. Just then, the boy woke up. He immediately sat up and was surprised to see Shuu. Shuu told the boy that it was best if he stayed still for a bit. At that moment, the boy's body staggered. Shuu advised him that it was best if he rested a bit more. The boy asked if it was Shuu who had neutralized the poison. Shuu revealed his 11th fungal ability to the boy and asked if this was what he had meant, and without hesitation, the boy immediately consumed the fungal ball. Shuu reacted in shock, asking if he had really eaten it just like that, and the boy simply swallowed it, then bowed deeply and expressed his gratitude for being saved. Shuu froze for a moment, realizing in his thoughts that it had been 5 years since he had woken up in this metro, and that having a normal conversation with another person felt almost unreal. Overwhelmed, Shuu teared up and quickly turned away, apologizing while asking the boy to wait for a moment. While Tamiko pointed out that he was crying, Shuu bluntly told her that she did not have to point it out. After things settled, the boy introduced himself as Ikari Noa, a hunter from the Ikebukuro tribe, and Shuu also introduced himself, with Tamiko doing the same. Ikari then looked at Tamiko and identified her species as a species of Nakano carbuncle. Tamiko was surprised and asked if Ikari had met her species before. Ikari answered that she had not and admitted that this would be her first meeting, but she had heard stories from her great-grandfather. Meanwhile, Shuu was dumbfounded, noticing that Ikari was not that surprised. He wondered if talking animals were actually common. More importantly, he wondered what Ikebukuro and Nakano were and what Ikari meant by tribe. Ikari remarked that Shuu was amazing for being able to solo a fully grown Catablepus. She admitted that it had been impossible for her and that she could not find an opening to run away, so Shuu had really saved her there. Hearing that, Shuu sighed in relief, glad that Ikari was not mad about him stealing her prey. Ikari then said that she would like to talk about all sorts of things, but asked if they would mind talking while she dismantled the beast. She pointed ahead and told them that there was running water that way, suggesting that they head there. However, seeing Ikari struggle to drag the massive body, Shuu commented that it was heavy and decided to help. Ikari's expression brightened as she thanked him. Meanwhile, Shuu was stunned when he noticed Ikari's chest, and Ikari became puzzled by his reaction. When she followed his gaze and realized that he had been looking at her chest, she quickly covered herself in embarrassment. Shuu then realized that she was a girl after all. Ikari apologized and tried to explain that it was not like she had been hiding it. Shuu, who was also flustered, replied that he would pull it from the front and asked if she could push from the back. On his shoulder, Tamiko remarked that she was a female as well. Shuu simply acknowledged it. Deep inside, Shuu could kind of guess why Ikari would be hiding her gender. She was a hunter, so there was no doubt that the world right now was more dangerous than before. Soon after, They arrived at their destination. Ikari summoned a knife and asked them to wait before beginning to dismantle the beast, cutting into its flesh and reaching inside to retrieve the sporangium. She then handed it to them and explained that since the two of them had taken it down, they should feel free to eat it. But Shuu told her that he would share this one with Tamiko, and that Ikari could eat the other one. Hearing that, Ikari was surprised and asked if it was really okay before thanking them. Immediately, Ikari ate the sporangium. Shuu quickly looked away and whispered to himself that he really could not look or he would be arrested. No, rather, the moment he looked at her with such eyes, it was already over. The moment Ikari finished the sporangium, an energy surged through her. Seeing that, Shuu flinched and quickly asked her what was wrong. Ikari told them that she had leveled up. Shuu congratulated her. Ikari added that with this, she was finally level 24. She thanked them once again. Meanwhile, Tamiko smugly revealed that she was at level 41. Ikari reacted in shock and remarked that it was amazing and that Tamiko was over level 40. She then turned and asked Abe Shuu what about him. Shuu casually replied that he was probably level 66, he thought. Hearing that, Ikari completely froze. She then mentioned that being over level 60 was at the level of a master. Shuu repeated the unfamiliar term in confusion, wondering about being a master, before deciding that it was likely. He then asked whether, other than the sporangium, they took the skin and meat. Ikari answered that they did. She explained that Catablipa's hide could be used to make clothes for hunters, while the fatty meat was rich in flavor, so they would salt it and make bacon outside. Shuu gasped at the word bacon with excitement. He then mentioned that this thing had breath poison earlier and wondered whether the meat was okay to eat. Ikari reassured him that it was fine. They would not touch the viscera, but for one this large, there was plenty of meat to go around. Hearing that, Shuu excitedly suggested that he would help and asked her to tell him what to cut as he summoned his sword. Ikari was surprised and commented that he also used a battle sword, in addition to a hammer, a large shield, and antidotes. She wondered if his fungal job was something like a holy knight. She then introduced herself as an artisan. Shuu repeated the unfamiliar terms in confusion, asking about fungal jobs and holy knights. Ikari quickly apologized and explained that she was only asking him questions, though she struggled to explain what she meant. In Shu's mind, he noted that there were a lot more technical terms than he had expected, so he could not understand what she was saying. He wanted to use this opportunity to tell her about his situation and learn more about everything, but the problem was that he did not know how she would react to that. She was the first human he had met here, and she seemed like a good kid. If she thought of him as a bad guy and closed her heart to him, he would probably cry. But it was not like he could avoid telling her. He was her savior at the very least, so he hoped that would prevent that from happening. Shu then called out to Ikari and told her that what he was about to tell her might sound strange. He would appreciate it if she would not be offended by it. Shu then revealed that he was a person who was probably from 100 or so years ago. He was from the old world, where dungeons and hunters did not exist. With that, he began explaining everything from the moment he had awakened. Moments later, Ikari let out a heavy sigh and said that she did not believe him. She understood, of course, that this would be the case. She mentioned that ever since it was identified 15 years ago, nobody had been able to take it down, and now he was telling her that he had defeated that Satan slime. Hearing this, Shu struggled to find the right words to explain. Just then, Tamiko confirmed that it was true that they had won, and that Abe Shuu had taken revenge for her mother and her partner. Ikari then asked if he could let her confirm one thing. She gently held his wrist and pressed her thumb against it, leaving him confused. Suddenly, she sliced his palm, causing a wound and making Shu gasp in pain as he demanded to know what she was doing, internally wondering whether she was a bad kid after all. Ikari requested that he let her clearly see how his wound would heal. As she watched closely, the injury began to close on its own. Ikari reacted in shock, noting that it was a bluish-black fungal filament and that it was also a lot faster than self-healing. She concluded that it was an immortal fungal ability. She then looked at Shu and asked whether it was true that he really was someone from the old world, a hero's vessel, the 13th thread reeler. Shu echoed in confusion, wondering what a thread reeler was. Ikari hesitated, unsure where she should begin explaining. She suggested continuing the conversation after they stepped outside, since it was a really long story and it would be difficult to explain everything properly there. Shu replied that he understood. Ikari apologized to him once again, and Shu quickly reassured her that it was okay because they still had things to do. In his mind, he was glad that she believed him, but he wondered if it was really that amazing. Ikari then informed them that it was getting a little late to start heading outside that day, so they should have a boar hot pot that night. Hearing this, Shu reacted excitedly. Tamiko wondered what a boar hot pot was, and Shu explained that it was a hot pot made with boar meat, the king of game meat. Tamiko asked whether it was tasty, and Shu admitted that he had never actually had any. Ikari giggled and revealed that, if she was being honest, that was precisely why she had come there. She had tried some in Narima before, and the taste was quite unforgettable. However, the result had been that she almost got eaten herself. She remarked that it had been much bigger than a normal Catablipas. Moments later, Ikari instructed Shuu on how to slice the beast's meat. After separating the different parts, he washed them in the river. Tamiko took a small bite of the raw meat and commented that it was juicier than wolf meat. Ikari explained that after adding salt, she would tie it up with herbs and hand it to them. She then asked Shuu to put it in the bag, and he immediately obeyed. Curious, Shuu wondered what the mushroom she was adding together with the meat was. Ikari explained that it was a beefsteak mushroom, and that it would absorb the water from the meat. Afterward, Ikari pointed somewhere and explained that there was a sort of safe room on the 13th floor where the beast could not enter. Once they reached that place, they would be able to rest easily for the day. Shuu mentioned that he would use the beast repellent again. As they walked through the narrow path, Shuu could see some beasts roaming around. He was amazed by how the beasts on this floor looked almost like little puppies. Ikari explained that if they compared them to the beasts from floor 50, then it made sense. Tamiko smugly announced that they were no match for her, and Shuu simply agreed. After walking for a while, Ikari pointed toward a small crack and indicated that it was the place. As they passed through it, Ikari ignited her lamp. Shuu commented on how dark it was there. Ikari explained that it was because there was no firefly moss. She then put down her bag and stretched out her arms, causing Shu's face to flush. He secretly noted that the moment she took off her mantle, it became very clear that she was a female. Now that he took a good look, he realized that she was quite well endowed. Ikari glanced at him and wondered what was wrong. Shuu quickly denied anything was wrong, explaining that he was just wondering whether all hunter clothes were like that. Ikari informed him that it was an orthodox jersey. It was cheap and had good resistance against stabbing as well as dirt, which had made it a favorite among hunters. Hearing this, Shuu realized that it was called a jersey after all. Ikari then asked Tamiko and should have fetched some water. She instructed them that once they exited, they had to turn right and should reach a water source. Following her instructions, they eventually reached the place. Shuu could not help but remark that it felt like they were back at that place, and Tamiko agreed. Shuu wondered whether Yunio-san was doing all right and hoped that was the case. While filling the bottle with water, Tamiko suddenly asked Shuu whether the human, Ikari Noa, was a trustworthy person. Shuu answered that he thought she was a good kid, although it seemed like she was having trouble saying something. Hearing that, Tamiko said she would believe him. Shuu grinned and remarked that it was very kind of her to say that, especially for a squirrel like her. Before long, they returned, and Ikari welcomed them. She told them that she would begin cooking. First, when the water started to boil, they had to dissolve the miso. Second, they had to add the seasonings, salt, and herbs. Third, they had to add the vegetables, mushrooms, and meat. Just smelling the aroma of the food made Shuu and Tamiko look extremely hungry. Later, the dish was ready, and Ikari gave them their portions. Both Tamiko and Shuu quickly expressed their gratitude before taking their spoons and eating. Upon tasting it, their bodies froze momentarily before they quickly began eating with tears in their eyes. Shuu cried out about how delicious it was, as if his body could not stop eating. Tamiko exclaimed that her tongue was in delicious heaven and that she could not take it anymore, making a squeak unlike any other. Hearing them, Ikari smiled before tasting her own cooking. She commented that it was incredibly good, especially because they had obtained the meat themselves. Moments like this made her appreciate being a hunter. Ikari urged them to eat more since they still had plenty, and promised that next time she would use lighter seasoning for Tamiko-san. Hearing this, Tamiko remarked that Ikari was the best. Shuu pointed out that Tamiko had been baited far too easily, although he admitted that he was no different. Moments later, Ikari boiled some water and asked Shuu whether he wanted some coffee. Shuu was surprised that they had coffee and happily accepted. As Ikari handed it to him, she briefly explained that it was grown in Nerima and was made from mushrooms. They grew coffee mushrooms, roasted them, and crushed them into a fine powder that could be used to make a drink. When Shuu tasted it, he silently noted that it was bitter, but there was no mistake that it was coffee. Tamiko excitedly asked for some as well. However, when she tasted it, her face immediately crumpled from the bitterness. Suddenly, Ikari brought up the fact that Shuu had mentioned not knowing anything about this world, including his own body. She explained that she might be able to help him learn more about it because she knew more about the previous era than most other people did. Shuu reacted in surprise. Ikari urged them to leave early the following morning so they could reach the outside while there was still daylight. First of all, she thought it would be best for Shuu to confirm everything with his own eyes. Although anxious, Shuu replied that he understood. He then expressed his gratitude, remarking that she was a great help because she was teaching him all sorts of things. Ikari smiled and said she could say the same, since the two of them were her saviors. Shuu then shifted the topic and asked how old she was. Ikari answered that she was 18 years old. Hearing this, Shuu wondered whether she was basically a JK. He also wondered what he had been doing when he was her age. Noticing his silence, Ikari tried to get his attention. Shuu mentioned that if he did not count the time he had spent asleep, he should be 28 that year. At least he thought so. Ikari stared intently at his face while muttering about his age, then commented that he looked a little younger than that after all. Tamiko suddenly interrupted and informed Akari that she was 10 years old. She pointed out that she had wet the bed the other day. Without warning, Tamiko struck him in the face, causing blood to burst from his nose. Later, as the night deepened, Akari asked whether it was okay to put out the fire. Shuu answered that it was fine. Akari then asked for Tamiko's opinion, but Shuu explained that she had already jumped the gun and fallen asleep. With that, Akari put out the fire and wished them good night. Shuu did the same before they went to sleep. Meanwhile, Tamiko was already sleeping peacefully, dreaming about her mom. A few years ago, on the 50th floor, a squirrel panted heavily as she stared at the baby she had just given birth to. At that moment, she thought about Katsuo and reflected that the life he gave her allowed her to meet this girl. She whispered to her child that a special ability or a mission of some sort, none of that mattered to her because she would be the one to protect her child. A few years passed, and her child grew. The squirrel told her child that she was starting to resemble her a lot, while the pattern of her fur was definitely her father's. The eyes of her child were possibly hers? The squirrel remarked that she would need to think of a name for her child soon. At the same time, she thought for a moment about her husband waiting back at home, Tarochi, and her lovely mother, Meikyuu. She then announced to her child that starting from now, her name would be Tamiko. Later, as they usually did, the mother pointed at an insect and asked what it was. Tamiko cheerfully answered that it was Koroni. The mother pointed to another one, and Tamiko immediately answered that it was Tonkuri. The mother praised her for correcting them all, then suggested that they should go a bit further that day. Tamiko cheerfully agreed. Meanwhile, the mother reflected that one had to learn, possess knowledge and power to survive in this underground world, how to catch insects, how to choose mushrooms, and how to distinguish animals and vegetation. There was also the rampant danger in the metro beasts, as well as the various traps in this complex labyrinth. One needed to know how to anticipate all of that and evade it. While they were resting, Tamiko called out to her mother and asked her to tell her about the surface again that day. And so the mother began telling her about it, while noting in her thoughts that they should have the know-how about the world outside. The mother realized that her daughter, Tamiko, was a really quick learner and might be more capable than her. However, intelligence was not the only trait that was passed on. All the words she usually blurted out at her prey were taken imperfectly. To think Tamiko saw her do that was just like how she was back in the day. She then called out to Tamiko and told her that from now on, she must end her sentences with a squeak. Tamiko echoed it in confusion. The mother explained that it was a magical charm that would bring her happiness. Internally, she noted that the carbuncle species and the humans of this country, named thread reelers, had a friendly arrangement. With just them alone, it would be impossible to get past the boss on the 49th floor. Right now, they could only hope that hunters came and dealt with it. If things continued like this, when Tamiko did meet a hunter, she might get treated as an emergency ration. The mother decided that Tamiko needed to become a valuable asset when that time eventually came. The mother then informed Tamiko that just like she had met her dad and her partner, it was a spell to help her when Tamiko's happy encounter came. She encouraged Tamiko to do it. Right away, Tamiko squeaked and said she could do it. Hearing that, the mother hugged her and praised her for being smart. Tamiko exclaimed that she loved having her belly rubbed. Seeing this, the mother could not help but think that Tamiko was just like her father. The carbuncle species, like Tamiko and her mother, were not suited for battle. Hunting was done with extreme care and precision, and any sporangium obtained was shared. Tamiko did not receive any major injuries and continued to grow, waiting every day for a meeting with a hunter. One day, the mother coughed heavily, and Tamiko worriedly asked if she was okay. The mother reassured her that she was fine and that it was only a light cold. She apologized to Tamiko for making her worry. Deep inside, she knew that the medicinal herbs were not helping and that she was getting worse by the day. She did not have a lot of time left. A few years passed, and Tamiko turned 4 years old. The mother greeted her with a happy birthday. Tamiko stared excitedly at the food in front of her and asked if it was for her. The mother answered that of course it was, since it was her celebration. While eating, the mother remarked that Tamiko had really gotten big. The mother added that she had become very dependable, and even if she was alone, she could deal with the area around them. The mother also told Tamiko that her fungal abilities were still low and that she was still at level 10, but Tamiko could support her when they hunted. The mother called out to Tamiko once again and told her that they should aim to reach the surface. She explained that lately, it felt like the beast there had become restless, making it dangerous to remain there. Deep down, the mother admitted that she would really like to have Tamiko grow up some more, but once she died, Tamiko would be all alone down there. If they could get past the boss room, even if Tamiko were alone, she would be able to go outside. The mother added that she would like to see Tamiko's dad again. He was very kind, so she would like Tamiko to meet him as well. However, at the mention of the 49th boss, Tamiko hesitated. Seeing this, The mother remembered that they had talked about Katsuo and how scary it was. Tamiko told her mom that she would like to stay there with her. The mother called Tamiko's attention and reminded her that they had talked a lot about the outside world, about the sky being very high, abundant forests, and large human cities. She also reminded her that Tamiko's father was waiting for them at their hometown. Sooner or later, they would have to take on that challenge, and they would leave that place alive. The mother told Tamiko that if they both tried together, she was sure they could sneak past that slime. Tamiko began to tremble, and her voice was also shaky as she muttered about the sun being very bright and pretty. She wanted to squeak at the sun together with her mommy. Hearing this, the mother held Tamiko's hand and said it was a promise that they would go look at the sun together. After that, they climbed the stairs, with the menacing aura growing stronger as they got closer. The mother reflected that during those 4 years, she had often come to check up on it. The slime had grown even bigger, and even a master-class rank hunter would probably lose against it. Meanwhile, Tamiko began trembling in fear. The mother quickly hugged her and reassured her that it was okay since she was with her. The mother noted in her thoughts that the plan was to search for the switch for the trapdoor that was somewhere behind the boss slime. She knew from experience that it should be possible to open it from the inside. If it was there, it should be on a wall near it. However, they needed someone to play the decoy role to distract the boss. They would wait there until something showed up to buy them some time. Just then, a loud roar echoed nearby. The mother quickly followed where it came from and realized that the roar was coming from the Orthros. It had come from the door's side. It was fast and had good dodging skills. They could not ask for a better decoy. They would not get a chance like this again. Without wasting a moment, the mother urged Tamiko that they were going in. But Tamiko continued to shiver, and her body would not move. The mother stopped and glanced at her. She hugged Tamiko and told her it was going to be okay. No matter what happened, she would protect her. Tamiko squeaked in response. As they charged in, the mother announced that they were going. As they charged in, the beast was immediately caught by the boss slime. The mother urgently told Tamiko that they had to search for the switch around there, and Tamiko squeaked in response. While searching, the mother reflected that it had likely become hidden so they could not find it at a glance. She needed to stay calm. The Orthros was still there. But her thoughts immediately faded the moment she glanced at the beast, which had now been crushed by the slime, its body slowly melting because of the acid. The mother reacted in disbelief, wondering how it could have happened so quickly. At that moment, the slime's tentacle swung in their direction, and the mother quickly pulled Tamiko with her as they evaded it. When they successfully distanced themselves, the mother asked Tamiko if she was okay and whether she had any injuries. Tamiko replied that she did not, but worry filled her when she saw that her mom's tail was slightly burnt. The mother reassured her that it was nothing. She then told Tamiko to run toward the stairs and go back, assuring her that she would be right behind her. Tamiko hesitated, but the mother shouted and urged her to go now. Right away, Tamiko sprinted toward the exit. Meanwhile, the mother, who was left behind, thought that until Tamiko reached the stairs, she would attract the slime's attention. Immediately, the mother scattered the mock charm, a scatter light that reflected fungal filament fragments. Then she activated her ability, Decoy. Once it came into contact with air, it emitted a sound similar to an animal scream, but the slime destroyed it in an instant. While evading its attacks, the mother thought that things were going well and that she would buy some time with this. Without wasting a moment, the mother activated another decoy and then scattered the mock charm. When Tamiko finally reached the exit, she quickly called out to her mom. Seeing that, the mother was glad that she had made it. She then told Tamiko to go down the stairs ahead of her and assured her that she would be right there. But the moment she sprinted, she suddenly coughed, causing her body to collapse on the ground. When she stood up again, it was too late, and the slime's tentacles smashed into her body. She then tumbled across the ground as she crashed into the wall. Heavily wounded, the mother realized that she had not been able to dodge it and that she needed to quickly go back. The mother forced herself to get up, but her body would not move. She watched Tamiko cry as she called out to her mother. The mother silently apologized to Tamiko for leaving her alone in this sort of place. It was because Tamiko was there that she had been able to make it this far. She wanted to show her so much more of this world, so she hoped that her child would find happiness from then on. At her final moments, the mother reached her hand toward Tamiko and told her that she loved her. After that, Tamiko returned to the 50th floor, crying non-stop as she repeatedly called out to her mom. Days passed after that incident. Tamiko lay on their bed while thinking about her mom. She wanted to go with her, but she had promised to look at the sun together. She reflected that she did not have any abilities yet, could not even leave this place, and much less level up. She had to go look for a sporangium that she was able to obtain. She noted that it was extremely rare to find a dead body with an intact sporangium or a metro beast that was on the verge of death, and that was because a beast that preyed on others did so for the sake of eating the sporangium. But for those who could not hunt alone, that was the only option remaining. As Tamiko searched a beast's corpse, she knew it was not there either. She wondered where else she could look for a sporangium. Just then, she heard a small noise echoing nearby. When she glanced toward it, she found a pup and a dead wolf. Its cries continued to echo. Tamiko hesitantly approached the pup, apologizing before lifting its body and biting off its neck. Tamiko spent her time wholeheartedly searching, and after half a year of scraping by with sheer luck, she gained a level up and a new fungal ability, enhanced hearing. She was amazed that she could hear all sorts of sounds and realized that this was an ability. She wished she could show it to mommy as well. Then, after one whole year of being separated from her mother, Tamiko suddenly heard a noise one day. She had never heard this type of sound before. It was not a cry, but rather something similar to the sound she and her mom made. When she finally arrived, she saw a naked man and a dead wolf lying on the ground. Tamiko secretly observed from nearby, realizing that it was a beast she had never seen before. She wondered if it had defeated the ghost wolf. Then she noticed that the creature's head was injured, its skin had a soft texture, and it had long, thin legs. It could not be. Was this the thread reeler that her mom had talked about? A hunter? But it was strange that it was not wearing clothes to substitute for fur. A sporangium was right in front of it, but it was not eating it, and it did not seem like it had any stamina left. Tamiko wondered if it was really a hunter. If it did not hurry up, the blood would attract the other beasts. Tamiko hugged her tail tightly, desperately questioning what she should do. Just then, she felt her mom's hand comforting her, and at that moment, she remembered her mom telling her that it was a spell to bring her good luck, just like when she met her dad and her partner. One day, Tamiko would have a happy meeting of her own. Recalling those words, Tamiko's resolve became solid, and she declared to herself that she could do it. It was a charm her mom had taught her, and she would show her that she could do it. Slowly, Tamiko stepped out from hiding, then sprinted toward the creature and asked him if he was not going to eat that sporangium. Back to the present, in Shu's mind, he noticed the rails that were going up the walls, a right turn that would be impossible to make, and a cave that had not been there yesterday. The things he had tried not to think about until he escaped were all he could think about now. He anxiously wondered if he would get an answer that day. When Shuu entered back into their temporary hideout, he greeted Ikari with good morning. Ikari rubbed her eyes and told them that she would make something light for breakfast, so they should start preparing to leave. Shuu thanked her in response. He then tickled Tamiko's belly as he tried to wake her up. Tamiko blushed as she called him a beast and accused him of trying to assault a maiden while she was asleep. Slowly, she drifted back to sleep, and Shuu told her not to go back. Later on, Ikari was done preparing breakfast. Shuu released a sigh of relief, remarking that this felt like breakfast, so yesterday's stew had not been a dream after all. Ikari informed them that they should depart once they were done eating. If they left then, the sun would still be up once they were outside. Meanwhile, Tamiko hesitated to drink as she asked if this was the bitter stuff from last night. Ikari told her that it was green tea today, and that she thought Tamiko-san would be able to drink it. Hearing that, Tamiko excitedly ran around her, shouting that Ikari Noah had earned 100 points. Ikari thanked her in response. After that, they resumed their journey to the surface. Shuu suddenly mentioned that, come to think of it, he had not really seen any other hunters besides them there. Ikari explained that Otsuka Metro did not provide any notable resources and was rather far from a town, so it was not a popular spot for hunters. In the past, there had been brave people who challenged the Satan slime, but everyone had lost the challenge. She explained further that she had heard that even a super party of over level 50, made up of famous masterclass people, could not win against the slime. This further discouraged people from trying to come there. So when she heard that Shuu had defeated that monster alone, it was quite the surprise. Tamiko quickly corrected her that it was two. Ikari acknowledged that she was right, and quickly apologized. Shuu then asked if having several people over level 50 should increase their odds of winning. Ikari told him that there was also the matter of whether their abilities suited the situation. Shuu replied that he understood. Just then, two wolves charged at them, but Shuu killed them in an instant. Ikari reacted in amazement. Then, after extracting the sporangium, Ikari exclaimed about its vicious, dense, and bitter flavor. She could not get enough of the bloody smell of the sporangium. Shuu was dumbfounded and remarked that the commentary was not good, as it looked as if she were eating something tasty. After a short rest, they continued onward. Their path shifted from grassy ground to a river, then into a cave, where they crawled through a narrow passage. Nervously, Tamiko called out to Shuu and asked which floor they were on now. Had they just passed the 12th, the 11th, or the 10th? Seeing this, Ikari laughed and answered that they were on the 9th floor. Shu's heart began to race nervously as he noted in his thoughts that they were finally on a single-digit floor. This was bad, as his tension was going through the roof. Tamiko bit his tail and, with a shaky voice, told Shuu that it was going to be okay because she was there. Shuu pointed out that she was eating her tail. Afterward, they reached the 2nd floor. Shuu noticed that the air here felt different. The mold smell was very thin here, and they were getting closer now. Finally, they arrived on the first floor. Shu's eyes stared at the exit. Tamiko leapt to the ground and said that she would walk on her own feet too, and that they should leave this place together. Shu smiled at her and replied that they should go to the promised land. When they finally stepped out of the dungeon, they were greeted by a bright light. Tamiko remarked that it was so bright and mentioned that the thing above was the sun. She quickly covered her eyes from the brightness. Ikari told her that she could not stare at it because her eyes were not used to it yet after being underground for so long. Tamiko remarked that it was pretty, the ceiling was so high, and then squeaked that it was blue. This was the sky of the outside, this was the world. Tamiko began to cry as she whispered that Mommy had done it, and that she had exited the metro. Meanwhile, Shu stood frozen. His eyes were filled with shock. He recalled that Tamiko's mother had said that the outside world was very beautiful, but he had no way of knowing how much of that was really the case, since it might have been a ruse to keep Tamiko's spirits up. That was because he knew what the world looked like, so he had been prepared for it, for a destroyed, barren landscape full of rubble, since Tokyo had fallen and human civilization had collapsed. Shu muttered in disbelief, wondering if this was really Tokyo. Staring at the towering strange plants around them, Shu could not believe that this was Tokyo. Ikari called out to him and suggested that they survey the land from there, as she thought they would be able to see the town as well. Tamiko excitedly agreed, wanting to see that human town. Immediately, they followed Ikari and climbed up to the cliff. But the moment they arrived, Shu was once again shocked, wondering what the hell this was. Ikari explained that in the Great Tokyo Woodlands, this whole area of New Tokyo was covered in fungal plants. Shu's eyes were horrified as he questioned how any of this could be Tokyo and how all of this could have happened in 100 years. Ikari revealed that she had heard from her great-grandfather that Tokyo had been a crowded city full of tall buildings in the past, and that there had been far more people living there than there were now. Shu echoed in confusion, wondering about her great-grandfather. Ikari explained that he was a person from the previous era, but he had died 8 years ago. Shu replied that he understood. Ikari then took out a small notebook from her pocket and explained that it was a notebook from her great-grandfather's early years, which vaguely described the happenings of their era. Hearing that, Shu thought in shock that these were notes from a person from his time. Ikari added that some areas of the notebook were too damaged to read, but fortunately, most of it was written clearly. She then began reading the text. The Tokyo judgment had occurred 100 years ago. Inside the Tokyo metropolitan area, on a certain day, a strange event took place at a Tokyo metro station. A previously non-existent route suddenly appeared. The tracks continued through a hole made in the wall, and there was a weak scent of fish wafting from the hole. Similar reports came one after another. Because of this, the Tokyo Metro halted operations, claiming that serious defects had been found in the tunnels and tracks of each line. They sent teams of people to investigate, but none of them returned. They then sent teams to look for the missing people, but even those teams did not return. At that time, the mysterious lines kept increasing. After that, 2 disasters occurred that came to be known as the Tokyo Judgment. The first was a flood event from the metro. The extensive metro system beneath the Tokyo area experienced a massive change suddenly, which caused a large earthquake to occur in the surrounding area. Then, the crumbling Tokyo was surrounded by a huge wall. Shu echoed in confusion at the mention of a wall. Ikari pointed ahead and asked if he could faintly see it in the distance. She explained that it was said to be a part of the metro, a large wall, and that the area beyond it was New Tokyo, or more precisely, the wall surrounded the central part of Old Tokyo. Shu froze as he reflected that, in other words, the underground metro had overflowed explosively, causing Tokyo to collapse. The wall had emerged, and contact with the outside world had ceased. He could not believe that all of it had happened in just one day. Ikari further explained that a lot of people had fallen victim to this, but even so, more than 10 million people had survived the disaster. Everyone waited for help to arrive from outside. However, the second disaster was the fungal pollution outbreak. An unknown fungus began spreading from inside the metro and quickly covered the walls, destroying everything in its path. Shu repeated the word fungus in confusion. Ikari told him that it was an existence completely different from any other fungus, and after a while, it was named the super fungus. Paper, machines, metal, power lines, glass, plastic, buildings, homes, and all infrastructure were destroyed. Then there was knowledge, history, society, art, communication, all science and culture. Everything above ground was destroyed. She further added that the super fungus was infectious, and a lot of people died because of it. Her great-grandfather, just like everyone else who survived, had been looking for a place to stay, and the place they chose to run away to seemed to have been the metro. Shu questioned how that could be possible when the fungus was spreading from inside the metro. Ikari confirmed that he was right. In the middle of such an infectious fungus, people developed a natural resistance to it. This was how their ancestors came to be, marking the beginning of the thread reelers. They created many colonies in the metro, They withstood the 10 years it took for the pollution to dissipate from the surface and eventually returned there, only to find that the surface had already become filled with fungal plants. They then began the restoration of humanity on the surface. They hunted beasts, cultivated the land, and built houses for people to stay in. It was because of them that people existed there in the present. The people who lived in the metro knew very well that it was filled with an abundance of resources, as well as the existence of sporangium possessed by the metro beasts. Therefore, for people who wanted to occupy the metro, the power gained from sporangium was indispensable. Thus began the profession of hunters that existed in the present. After that, Ikari closed the notebook and turned to them, explaining that this summed up the ending of the previous era and the beginning of the new one that her great-grandfather had witnessed. Tamiko was dazed, while Shuu fell into despair as he replied that he understood all of that, but wondered what was beyond the wall. Hearing this, Ikari drooped and quickly apologized. Shuu reacted in confusion. Ikari admitted that they had never been able to cross that wall. Shuu asked what she meant, and Ikari explained that she had heard it was not possible for birds to fly over it either. It was not simply a wall, and interfering with or attempting to cross over it was considered one of the taboos. Shuu was stunned, realizing that there was no information about the outside because they could not do anything about it. He wondered what was up with this mystery trip. Shuu then asked again whether she knew about airplanes or helicopters. Ikari told him that she knew what those were, but she had never seen those machines herself. The government or the Metro Order might know more. Shuu replied that he understood and thanked her, saying that he finally understood everything now. He then sat on the ground, feeling despair. Tamiko worriedly called out to him. Shuu silently recalled his memories from before everything happened and realized that all of it could already be gone, even his home. Everyone fell silent while Shuu quietly cried. Suddenly, something approached from a distance. It was coming toward them, and in that instant, Tamiko sensed it and quickly turned around. But in a swift motion, the creature snatched Tamiko from Shu's shoulder. Shuu was momentarily stunned and wondered what had just happened. Tamiko's screams echoed loudly. Shuu shouted her name as he realized that she had been taken by a bird. Tamiko cried out as her body was quickly carried away from them. Shuu clenched his teeth, realizing that this was bad and that at this rate, she would get fed to the chicks. He quickly handed his coat to Ikari, apologizing to her and asking her to take care of it. He then activated his ability, and in an instant, 2 arms appeared on his back. Seeing this, Ikari was shocked. Without hesitation, Shuu leapt into the air. He grabbed a nearby tree and swung himself from one tree to another until he got close to the bird carrying Tamiko. Shuu told himself that he only needed a little more distance. He activated another ability and was about to strike the bird, but its body was suddenly severed in half, causing its grip on Tamiko to loosen. Tamiko's body began to fall, but Shuu quickly caught her just in time, and the two of them began falling through the trees. After they landed, Shuu remarked that he had not thought about the landing. He then asked Tamiko if she was okay. Tamiko screamed that she had been very scared just then. Shuu asked what had happened there, and Tamiko pointed somewhere. But Shuu told her that he could not look, so she should move away from his face. Tamiko explained that she had turned that bird bastard into rust for her squeak by using her super hardening ability. Shuu could not help but think that she had become quite the fierce beast. Just then, Ikari arrived, panting heavily, saying that she had finally found them. Shuu was surprised and quickly apologized to her, then said that he would come to her right away. But Ikari quickly refused, reassuring him that she was okay and, more importantly, asking if he could see the town from up there. Shuu stared into the distance and said that it was really there. Ikari informed him that the town he was looking at in the distance was called Sugamo, and the big tower he could see marked the territory of the Ikebukuro tribe. Shu's face lit up as he mentioned that, come to think of it, Ikari-san belonged to the tribe, right? Ikari confirmed it, and said that she was also registered at the Bukuro's branch guild. Shuu landed back on the ground and asked if they were heading to Ikebukuro then. Ikari told him no, explaining that she was thinking of going to Sugamo. Shuu questioned whether Ikebukuro was not closer, since it looked like a big town too. Ikari agreed, but insisted that she simply thought it would be better for them if they went to Sugamo. Hearing this, Shuu could not help but wonder about the reason. Since it was no more than a jump from one station to another in terms of distance, it felt like there was something that was not easy for her to say. But now, he thought he understood. It must have been this full-body wolf appearance that was making her refuse the idea. It must have been too early to visit the Ikebukuro owl statue for someone who had just gotten out and looked feral. The Jizo of Sugamo, on the other hand, welcomed everyone regardless of who they were or how they looked. So it was something like that. Shuu sighed, then told her that he understood and expressed his gratitude for her consideration. Ikari was puzzled but responded anyway. Nearby, Tamiko pointed at the bird and asked if they were going to eat it. But Ikari informed them that the bird was called a tetra-black kite and that it was quite a dangerous species. She then praised Tamiko-san. Hearing this, Tamiko proudly replied that some level chump chick had no chance. Shuu pointed out that she had gotten caught and peed herself. Ikari interrupted, apologizing for bringing this up, but explained that its meat did not taste good. Its beak, talons, and feathers made good decorative pieces, though, so they should take those. However, the two paid no attention to her. Tamiko protested to Shuu that she had not peed herself and called him a salt-faced virgin, threatening to squeak his hide off. Shuu argued that he was not a virgin and called her a pisser squirrel, threatening to kill her and consider her chopped. Ikari interrupted once again, asking if they were listening to her. She then showed them the feather and explained that since the commotion earlier might have attracted bandits to their location, she was thinking of taking a detour to avoid them. Then, all of a sudden, she asked Shuu if he was all right. Tamiko added that he had looked down earlier and questioned whether he was feeling better now. Shuu smiled, apologizing for making them worry. He admitted that he was not there yet, but he could not stay like that for long. He was better now, thanks. Inwardly, Shuu told himself that he had to get to town first. They could wade through the sea of trees in an hour and reach Sugamo. Ikari then urged them to move, informing them that they would be there in 3 hours if they were on foot. Hearing that, Shuu was momentarily stunned before reacting in disbelief. Ikari asked if he wanted to see the map, though it was a simplified version. She pointed to Ikebukuro on the map and explained that if they went south from there, they would be able to reach a highway. It was a bit of a walk from there, but it would be a straight path. Shuu could not believe it and commented that this was very different from his memory. At that moment, Ikari suddenly remembered that it had also been mentioned in her great-grandfather's notes. After the judgment happened, the metro continued to flow out and change. When the pollution cleared up and all the people returned to the surface, the area inside the wall was estimated to be larger by about 100 times. It seemed like everything was much farther away now than it had been before. Hearing that, Shuu burst out in frustration, wondering if it was really 100 times larger. Forget Tokyo, that was the Kanto region. He could not take it anymore. Afterward, they continued on their tracks. Shuu sighed heavily, mentioning that when he looked at it from above, it looked far away, but even so, he saw quite a few familiar names there. He then wondered what the markings were. Ikari explained that the block dots were tribe territories, while the white dots represented other cities or towns. During the rebuilding of civilization, the few larger settlements joined together to become tribes. A government was established to oversee all of those tribes, and that became the new Tokyo country. A chief led each tribe, while other towns were either under the government's rule or were independent. Slowly, Shuu realized that these markings were where they had just been. He wondered aloud if these were metro dungeons. Ikari confirmed that he was correct and added that there were many more that were not on that map as well. Even then, a new metro might be discovered somewhere they did not know about. After all, New Tokyo was a metro country. Shuu asked what they were, wondering if they were bamboo shoots. Meanwhile, Tamiko stared at the sky and was mesmerized. She quickly told Shuu that it was getting dark. Shuu responded that it was nighttime. Tamiko excitedly pointed out that there were small moss-like things shining in the sky. Shuu told her that those were stars. Tamiko exclaimed that they were shining all over the place and were prettier than acorns. Hearing this, Shuu remarked that she might be the first person to compare stars to acorns. Just then, Tamiko sensed someone approaching. Seeing her sudden silence, Shuu asked what was wrong. Tamiko quickly warned them that something was coming from there. Immediately, Shuu charged forward and told Ikari to wait a moment. His eyes then widened as he stared ahead, wondering if that was a car.